Am I the asshole for getting angry at my husband for getting the wrong bra size? For a little background, I, female 29, have always been a rather skinny person, size 00, with barely, red none, existent curves, so to say. I don't wear a bra for the lack of need, but when I do, it would be some AA bralette and I would call it a day. Recently, I got to know that I have somewhat serious medical issues and I need to start hormonal therapy. Most likely I will gain weight, which doesn't bother me that much. I just want to be healthy again. But I did start feeling a little insecure, not only with potential weight gain, but with already starting to see some side effects on my skin, hair, and generally, I'm just moodier. My husband Jeremy, male 34, has been nothing but really supportive. He is very understanding with my current moods and goes out of his way to compliment me and get me to feel better, like saying there will be more of me to love, or that I will look beautiful no matter what. And now on to the story that got me feeling really mad and upset at Jeremy. Sometimes he needs to travel for work for a few days. This time, as he came back, usual stuff proceeded. I went to wash his clothes from the weekender bag and found an obvious pink bag, inside which I found a really pretty set of lingerie with a bra cup size C. I was really confused and asked him about it. Jeremy then tells me that he knows that I've been feeling insecure about potential weight gain and he wanted to surprise me that there are good things in every size. I don't know, it just made me very upset. Like, most likely my breasts wouldn't even grow to that size. Why on earth would he buy a bra for me 4 sizes larger? Like he has some kind of expectations of how my body should look like. I just don't know. He says that I'm being emotional and overreacting, and if I don't like it, he'll just take it back, that he wanted to make me feel better, and instead, I'm just throwing a strop at him. So am I the asshole for not appreciating a wrong bra size, even if it was with good intentions? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. 1. I got angry at my husband for a thoughtful gift that was supposed to make me feel better. 2. I think his intentions were good, so maybe I'm in the wrong and I should try to be grateful for having such a thoughtful husband instead of getting angry at him. And now in the comments, you're the asshole. Husbands can be idiots with this kind of stuff. Knowing our bra sizes to our menstruating products is like trying to solve a difficult quantum physics problem for them. He meant well. You'll just need to chill for a bit because remember, he's being patient with you through your therapy. Try reciprocating that understanding back to him. Meant well? I'd be shocked if that bra was for her. I was also thinking that, but OP didn't mention any out of the ordinary reactions from him when she found the lingerie in his bag. And OP says, no, he was completely calm and cool. He was in the shower as I asked him about the lingerie, and as he left the shower, he just explained that it's something to look forward to once weight gain starts. He didn't freak out or anything. I don't think he can be cheating. He is an amazing husband, and we've been together for 12 years, married for 5. So I don't think he would do something like that. Info. Were the tags still on the lingerie? Was it obviously new? 'Cause hun, some of us have been on Reddit a little too long to not think that it's sus that he went away, came back with lingerie that you've never seen before, and that isn't in your size, and then waited until you were cleaning out his bag to find your gift. And OP replies, yup, there were tags, brand new and extremely nice. Money has been a little tight lately, and this set is really out of our budget. It's like really nice. Too nice. And it was hidden in his bag. His clothes were wrapped around it. He said he wanted to gift it over dinner if I didn't go through his bag immediately, which to be honest, I usually don't do, but leave it till the next day. And now onto the update. So this post has been up for about an hour, but the majority of comments are saying that he could have cheated on me and it wasn't meant for me. I have been so wrapped up with my body image and insecurity that I haven't thought about it. To make me feel better, I went on his computer to see iMessages, and yep, he has a C cup on the side. I'm gonna wait for him to come home and talk about it. I don't know what people do. I feel empty. This discussion is over. Thank you all. And now in the comments, no wonder the money's tight if he's buying lingerie for his side C cup. Out of their budget lingerie at that. And if it's all the time trips with the side piece, he's probably buying a lot more and spending a lot more because of it. I hope that she gets all the money he spent on his side piece while living her life out fully single and happy. The fact that he lied about it so smoothly is just... gah. I'm enraged on OP's behalf. Pretending to be supportive and there for her while he's banging Miss C-Cup on the side, what an ass. Honestly, he probably thought that he struck gold. Hidden lingerie set in the wrong size? With any hidden gift clearly not for wife, most women would immediately assume affair. Instead, OP assumed due to the weight gain, he just screwed up and confronted him, basically with an excuse ready for him to jump on. If it hadn't been for OP's medical issues at the time, she probably would have reacted differently and immediately accused him of an affair. Husband must have thought that he dodged a huge bullet and could even play the "I was being nice to you and you are being a jerk" card while playing the victim. He probably would have gotten away with it too if OP hadn't posted. I think I'm dating the man that got me pregnant on a one-night stand. I'm a single mother to a beautiful little girl from a one-night stand about 4.5 years ago. Just finished college and had just moved and wasn't looking for anything serious. It also happened just before I left my 2-month-long post-college vacation. I have been dating this man for 4 months. He's met my daughter once. They get along extremely well, but I don't let them overlap too much. I don't want to expose her to passing in flings, and though he has mentioned wanting to continue this, we aren't quite serious yet. Prior to last week, he's been coming back to my place because I had a bad experience going back to another man's place a year ago, so I went back to his place for the first time. It's the same frickin' building as that man. I didn't really recognize it until we pulled into the parking garage and went up the elevator, but I know it is. But I recognized the hallways instantly. It also had a very recognizable condo smell. I don't know why I remember that, but I feel like they use the clean solutions that spas use. It smells like eucalyptus and apartment musk. The condo itself is similar, but it's been 4 years, and I honestly don't remember anything but his room, and that he had a red couch and the layout, which I'm assuming is similar for most of the condos. He doesn't have the couch, but the layout's the same, and I'm pretty sure it has the same view from its main window. And before people come at me for not hunting him down, etc., when we slept together, I had just moved to the city after my masters. I would have never found his condo myself because I bussed back. Also, we had been obviously drinking. It's been a week, but I genuinely am thinking it's him now because, though they were busy, we met both times at 2 very similar events. 4 years ago, the man had shoulder-length wavy dark hair and a thick beard when we slept together. He does have a similar skin tone, kinda Mediterranean. The man I am dating has short cropped dark hair, light stubble, and glasses. He also has an Italian background. They have the same name. It's a very basic American name, so I never connected it together. Also, to make it worse, I likely look very different too. I used to be very thin and suffered from an eating disorder that my pregnancy really helped me to overcome. I've gained 30 pounds that I really needed. I also had short hair that I straightened, and I'm half black and admittedly look very different now with my longer curly hair. I have been dwelling on this for the entire week. I don't know what I'm asking, but I don't know if I also need legal advice, or if I should cut contact because even if it isn't him, I don't think I'll be able to get over this weird feeling that it is. Is there a way to bring this up? Should I message him and let him have the option to ghost me? I'm scared he'll think I'm crazy if I bring this up, or that I planned it or something weird like that. How do I approach this? Or should it not be approached at all? It's so effing mental, I don't know what to do. Sorry if absolutely none of this makes any sense. And also to be clear, I am stable time-wise and money-wise. I do not need this man in my life. My daughter has 2 amazing father figures in her uncle who visits every other day and absolutely loves their roles in her life and would probably steal her if they could. And now in the comments, talk to him. You know, I keep getting the weirdest feeling that we met each other years ago. Did you used to have a thick beard and shoulder-length hair? If the answer is no, then he's not the same guy. Brush it off to him as an odd coincidence and move on. If the answer is yes, then probe further. And how long have you lived in your apartment? Under 5 or 6 years? Not the guy. Over 5 or 6 years? Probe further by asking if he had a red couch back then. If the answer is yes, then you need to ask him if he remembers a girl who looked like you did back then and take it from there. If either of you can get out old photos of yourselves, then that would be even better. I know it seems like a long-winded way to do it, but it would be a good idea to be more certain about your suspicion before dropping a maybe baby daddy bombshell on him, because life is full of weird coincidences that don't actually mean anything in the end, and memories can play tricks on us. Wait a minute, you don't remember what he looked like other than Mediterranean blah blah blah. Does he remember you? You have to clear this up. The only thing crazier than just exploring it is leaving it unanswered. And OP says, it was 5 years ago, and at this point, the more I try to remember exactly what he looked like, the less I do. It might sound bad, but I didn't have any intention of seeing him again at the time. I just don't really remember, plus, we had been drinking. And yes, but I seriously don't know how to broach this, and I don't know if he remembers me. I'm assuming not. And now back up to the edits. It's him. He had the red couch I remembered, so if anyone has any suggestions about how to tell a man this, that would be great. Thanks. Edit 2, I sent him this post. I didn't know how else to do it. He saw it half an hour ago and has yet to respond, so I'm going to bed. Thumbs up. Edit 3, I woke up to a lot more comments than I was expecting, and I just dropped my daughter at her uncle's, so I'll respond to what I can now. I'm getting some flack for telling him this way, but until you are in an absolutely insane position like this, you don't know how impossible it is to broach a topic like this. I'm not a shy person, but this was enough to almost make me contemplate ghosting him, even though I do like him and I know it's wrong. We've been talking for 6 months and dating for 4. He asked about monogamy 2 weeks ago and I agreed. With this post, I sent him a picture of me from 5 years ago and told him the event and when and where, and any other small details I could remember, and the sonogram with the date that I have on my fridge. He messaged at 4 AM to say, yes, I was there, I remember you, and I've seen the text bubbles popping up and disappearing all morning. I don't have any other updates, and I'm not sure I will. I clearly only looked for potential partners who would be okay with a woman with a kid in the picture. My daughter is the world to me, but I'm not sure how this can not be an incredible shock. I'm going to give him time and contact my family's lawyer with the crap storm I know I've just caused. I do want to have a laugh though, at the people who think it's impossible of me to have forgotten what a one-night stand looked like. It was 5 years ago. We have both clearly changed a lot, and we had been drinking. There are people I don't recognize from uni who sat next to me in class for a year. Thanks for the help earlier. I'll probably have to delete this, but this has really helped me calm down. I used to journal a lot before I had my daughter. And now on to the update. I doubt this will be the update everyone was hoping for, but he bounced, to put it politely. Won't answer my calls or messages, though I don't think he actually blocked me. We talked the first few days, exchanged pictures, etc. It's definitely him. He knows it is. Then about a week and a bit ago, nothing. I guess I could go by his place, but I don't particularly care to, and I doubt he would appreciate it. If this is his choice, he can stick with it. I didn't get a choice when this happened, even though it's the happiest accident of my life, but I didn't have the option either. I own a business and have been debating the opportunity to move to invest in a small estate Europe for a few years, and I have been putting off the decision. He was aware of this while we were dating. My daughter's uncles are even planning on moving with us for the opportunity since they both have dual citizenships like us. So I'm sorry if this is a disappointment for lots of you. I do wish him the best, but I think big, insane moments like this are eye-opening. I also think that my daughter would benefit from experiencing Europe. If he gets back in contact, I would be willing to pay for his flights and housing, etc. for him to get to know her, but I don't think that will be the case. Hope you're all well, and this didn't add too much of a downer to your days, but I got a lot of requests to update. And now in the comments, all the best to you and your child. Take care. Thank you. He might have temporary cold feet or shock, and if things go well, he gets back to his senses in a week or two and fixes up his act. You just focus on doing what's best for your child, and don't let anyone take advantage of you or the child. The romantic in me hopes that he just has cold feet because he's surprised, but I'm glad that OP not only communicated her goals to him, but isn't letting him stop her even with this new major development. I hope he comes around and at least gives OP some answers. Shoot for the moon, OP, and give both you and your daughter the life that you both want and deserve. You've done it without him so far, you can do it without him further. If he wants to join, I hope it works out. At minimum, it is good to know who the father is for potential health reasons down the road. No need to keep in touch, but family health history could come in handy if necessary, and he would at least provide that in the future. Willing to date a single mom, but not step up for his own child. You dodged a bullet, OP. He's probably still processing. This is kind of a big deal. He could tell her that and say he needs time to process instead of just ghosting. Yeah, no grown man just ghosts a woman for a week after finding out that he has a child with her. It seems like communication and figuring out where to go would be the adult thing to do. Otherwise, I don't have a ton of respect for his response or lack thereof. I send you all the best of vibes and energy in raising your child. I followed your story and I hope you find luck in somebody else. And OP says, I'm content single, always have been, but yeah, maybe someday. And thank you, I think she'll be happy since her uncles will come too. Don't pay for his flights, it's the least he can do if he changes his mind. She's not doing it for him, it's for her child. If having him pay for the flight is enough to deter him from getting to know his child, it's probably best he's not in their lives. I feel like the way OP went about telling him about the whole situation was not ideal. This is something that should have been discussed in person, as it was pointed out. Then again, the circumstances are just insane. It's disappointing that he has seemingly ghosted her. I kind of get the feeling OP didn't want him involved, and he didn't want to be involved, and they both have this feeling of, welp, it is what it is, and it's resolved now. I honestly just feel bad for the daughter. At some point, this will be so confusing to find out for her. This was only 2 weeks ago. It takes me longer to text back sometimes, and that's to people I don't have a surprise baby with. I really want him to still just be in shock. Maybe he's contacting his own lawyer to get a DNA test. Maybe wondering if she knew, or feeling weird about the internet getting the memo before him. Maybe trying to find a therapist to check in with. Ugh. I just wanted this one to play out differently, and my brain is just not ready to write him off because he didn't instantly become Dad of the Year after this incredibly weird serendipitous event. Our next post is titled, Florida. Hospital security guard tried to deny me access because I didn't smile. Background. I'm a 20-something female. My older sister is a physician at a hospital. She's hosting Thanksgiving at her home this year, so my other siblings and I have flown in to stay with her. I had just gotten my older brother from the airport, and we went to the hospital to pick up our sister after her shift. When we got to the hospital, there's a small security guard podium where the security guard hands out visitors stickers. My brother and I went up to get our stickers, and when the guard handed mine to me, he said, "Why aren't you smiling?" I was exhausted because it had been a long day, and I told him that I was tired and just wanted to get my sister so that we could all go home and relax. He kind of smirked and scoffed, and then my brother and I walked away. We were all the way across the lobby when the security guard called after my brother with, Sir, you need to come back here." We both turned around and started walking back towards the guard, but he stopped me and told me to stay where I was, so I did. My brother went up to him, and the guard told him that if I didn't smile the next time he saw me, and if I wasn't in a better mood, then he had the right to deny me access into the hospital. To note, I was in no way rude to anyone, just tired and not very talkative. My brother's flight was delayed 3 hours, and I just spent most of the afternoon sitting in baggage claim. My brother asked why the guard was talking to him and not to me, and the guard's response was, "Because you need to control her. You need to make certain that she behaves herself." At that point, my brother walked away and didn't want to engage any further. We got my sister a few minutes later and went home. One of my friends told me that the guard exercised tone policing along with a great display of misogyny. But aside from that, can a security guard reasonably deny me access because he doesn't like that I'm not cheerfully smiling? I would think that access can only be denied for legitimate threats, not a 20-something woman who is tired and not smiling. What is the legal basis here? And now in the comments, did you make any complaints to the hospital yet? And OP replies, my sister gave me the information to contact HR, but I honestly don't know what to say. I don't really understand the situation because it's honestly so bizarre. I want to make certain that when I write to the hospital, I'm informed about what I'm writing about. Is this a misuse of the security guard's position? Is it discrimination? Is it a legal violation? He also said that he didn't like the way that I took the visitor's sticker from him, but my brother has confirmed that I took it from him the same way that everyone else did. He handed it to me and I took it. Pretty basic. Just to hammer the point home, simply tell hospital HR what you told us here. It's creepy. It doesn't have to be anything more than that for the hospital to do something about it. A person's behavior and demeanor can legally be used as criteria for admittance, and a security guard is generally allowed to act as the property owner's/manager's agent in deciding what constitutes a possible threat to the premises and other individuals present there. So yes, it is legal, but that does not make it okay. Contact his employer if you have a problem with his work behavior. Also, how he insisted on only speaking to my brother about my demeanor. It stripped me of my voice/agency and was incredibly dehumanizing. Just because it is legal does not mean that the hospital knows about his behavior and would approve. You could report him to a supervisor. You should report him. And now onto the update. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who responded to my first post and gave me the courage to approach HR. My sister, the hospital physician, actually spoke to HR first. She went to them this morning, as she was off yesterday, and then spoke to the head of the security team. I was asked to come into the hospital this morning to meet with hospital administration. My brother went in with me and corroborated my story. HR was appalled. They said that they'd heard rumors about this specific security guard, but no one had ever escalated their complaints to administration. They brought in 2 more security guards who have worked with him to verify some of the rumors they've heard. Apparently the guard in question has been caught lingering in front of the women's restrooms on his breaks, and he denied a doctor's wife entrance because she didn't know the room number for the cafeteria where she was meeting her husband for lunch. The final thing HR said to me was, "Today will be the last day you will see him. We do not support this type of behavior at our institution, and he will not continue with us." In the end, the HR director told me that it is so important to report inappropriate behavior. She said that so many times people will gossip amongst themselves about situations, but no one will actually take it up with administration, which subsequently makes HR's job more difficult to complete because then they don't know about happenings within the organization. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now in the comments, telling her brother that she needs to smile? Disallowing entry to a woman because they don't know the room number for the cafeteria. Creepy misogyny aside, it's absolutely incredible how little power it takes for some people to openly act like authoritarian weirdos. Even if it wasn't disgustingly misogynistic, I can think of a lot of valid reasons why someone might not want to smile at a hospital. Well, sure, there's layers here, like a rotting onion. That was my first thought. Even if I was just having a normal bad day and meeting someone for lunch, I would lie and say, "F you, my mum is in there dying of cancer, I am not smiling." Seriously, rule number 1 of the hospital is mind your own damn business. Tangential, but my dad had to have surgery once, and he was already in the ICU. He wasn't stable enough to move, so they locked the ICU doors and did the surgery right there. We went and got food and came back to this lady yelling and banging on the doors because those assholes wouldn't let her in to give her husband lunch. My brother stared at her until she got quiet and then told her, "I'm so sorry that the life-saving surgery they are performing on my father is inconveniencing you." And she left. Even if tone policing was okay, which it's not, does the guy not realize he works in a hospital? They aren't always going to be a happy place. It's a double-edged sword where good companies/HR can't get people to report complaints because of the bad companies/HR where it's used against the person/employee. I'm glad this was a good company in this case, but that's why it's hard. Victim blaming or retaliation are real concerns when reporting the issues. This is why unions are so important. You have an organization of workers to give you exactly that feedback. I recently got an email that made me think that I was in trouble at work. Texted union rep, told me the standard protocol, if they did XYZ that I was fine, but if they did ABC, they were going overboard and we needed to fight it, etc. Or I forget what they're called, external business partners? I don't know, but it's what responsible organizations are increasingly doing. They are intentionally building firewalls and multiple sources for reporting so that it's harder for it to get suppressed. Don't quote me, but I think this is reflective of a general shift towards flatter organizational structures versus the more traditional top-down hierarchy. Am I the asshole for being very harsh? My 36 female son, 14 male, has been acting out a lot. I'm trying to give him appropriate consequences, etc., but his father/my ex just undoes everything that I try to implement. My ex doesn't care if our son does anything as long as it doesn't affect his athletic abilities, and it's created a cool dad and evil mom dynamic. Anyways, I had a mini vacation planned for the weekend. I have a family-owned house in this beach town, and my son and stepdaughters love going down there. The thing is, I got a call from a friend saying that her daughter is a mess because of my son. He asked the poor girl out, and when she said yes, he laughed at her and said some really cruel things. I was horrified. I asked him about it, and he rolled his eyes and told me that it was just a joke. When I tried telling him that these jokes hurt, he told me that I was being ridiculous and that his dad and stepmom would think it's funny. He then said that he wishes I was as cool as his stepmom. I told him that I am his mother and that my first priority is being his mum, not being cool. I then told him that we are no longer going to the beach house. He also has to apologize to the girl, and if he ever bothers her or any other girl again, then the consequences will be a lot worse. I then proceeded to drive him to the girl's house and made him apologize to the girl in front of her mom. He said he was sorry, and I also said it. I bought her a necklace and took the money for that from my son's allowance as well. The girl was a lot happier, and her mom said she appreciated the apology. While driving back home, my son started yelling at me and said that that was the most embarrassing thing he's ever had to do. I told him to imagine how the girl felt when he did that to her in front of everyone. He just said whatever and was like, "Can we go to the beach now?" I said no, we can't and we won't. He started yelling again and said that I was doing too much over a joke and that if the girl accepted the apology, then why am I making things so difficult for him? He also said that since I embarrassed him, this was the least I could do. He later called my ex, who told me that I was a major asshole for being so harsh, and he more or less repeated what my son said. I don't think I'm an asshole in the slightest, but I see how I'm being harsh. I just wanted some perspective because X and his wife and my son are begging me to reconsider and relax. Am I the asshole? No, he deserved what you did to him, absolutely. Your ex enabling things doesn't make it any easier on you, and I sympathize with you there. Though given that they don't want to work with you and make this easier for both you and your ex, I don't see any good way out of this one, unfortunately. Though I can say that in this situation, I don't think you're the asshole, so not the asshole. Now in the comments, not the asshole. Way to be an awesome parent and hold your child accountable. I can definitely see why you split from the ex. Like, in what world is it a joke to screw with another person's emotions like that? I would have done the same thing if I had kids. And OP says, "Thank you. I'm really trying. I love my son, and I don't want him to grow up thinking he can do whatever he wants to people. My ex, he actually cheated on me, and that's why we split, but his attitude was definitely a factor as well. Sadly, it's gonna be difficult because your ex is in the picture, but you definitely should not doubt yourself or feel guilty. There's a lot of boys and girls in this world who need or needed parents like you. Never forget that." As the girl who was always the butt of the ask her out as a joke prank, I applaud your efforts. You are not the asshole, nor harsh. This was an appropriate punishment. I was also that girl. Solidarity, friend. OP, as the girl who never got an apology, it really messed me up for a long time, and I still have low self-esteem at 37. Thank you for being a responsible parent and seeing that this kind of thing isn't just a joke. 100% not the asshole. Not the asshole. But your ex and his new wifey are assholes. You need some family intervention and counseling, and your son's father and stepmom need an attitude adjustment. If they don't change, then you should change the custody agreement, and they get limited access. I know your son is a teen and will rebel, but if you don't get this fixed now, he's going to be an even bigger nightmare in a year or two. Document everything that happens, even the littlest thing. Were there text conversations about how dad and stepmom thought what he did to that poor girl was okay? Save them. Save everything else. Both of these comments. X is turning your son against you, which is generally heavily frowned upon by the courts. Not the asshole, your ex probably taught him it was okay to treat women less than. There was a post yesterday, I think, about a single father who bought his young daughter flowers from a florist just because. His colleague saw him and said he was wrong for creating unrealistic expectations. Your ex is like that colleague who doesn't understand how to treat women correctly, and he's blaming men who do treat women with respect for making getting women difficult for men like him. I'm guessing it has something to do with the reason he is your ex. He's also teaching his son not to treat women correctly. You did the absolute correct thing here. And now onto the update. Hi, I just wanted to make this post before I move on. I kept my word. No beach house, no matter what my ex, his wife, and my son said about me. It was hard, and I broke down on Sunday because even though I know my son loves me and that he's just angry, hearing him say that he wishes that I wasn't his mother over and over hurts a lot. On Sunday, May 1st, after my breakdown, I told him that he can stay with his dad for the week. My ex was going to have him for the weekend anyways. So yeah, Sunday evening I took my son out. I wanted to try one more time to make him understand and tell him that I love him, and that's why I'm being so strict. I took him to a park that we used to go to, just him and I. I usually took him there when my ex and I would fight, and he would leave us for days to see his sister. He was pretty moody the entire time and called me crazy for wanting to eat on the grass, lol, but he complied. I asked him if he remembered the spot, and he said yeah. I then talked to him about everything. I also reminded him that there is nobody in this world and beyond that I love more than him. He was silent the entire ride to his dad's house, and I thought I screwed up until we arrived and he said, "I love you too, Mum." It was so hard to keep the tears in. I had to take a break from driving home because of how emotional I was. Monday and Tuesday were calm and nothing out of the ordinary. Wednesday night was different. My husband and I were out while the girls were with my in-laws when I got a call from my son. He was just quiet but asked if I could pick him up. I called my ex, who just told me that our son was being dramatic, but I was welcome to take him. It was obvious that him and his father had a pretty bad argument about something. I asked him what happened since the ex kept telling me that it was nothing, and it turns out my ex cheated on his wife. His wife confronted him and brought up the fact that he cheated on me. X proceeded to insult me and call me names. My son heard everything and put it together. My son was distressed, and I really wish he didn't have to find out. Not like this. When we got home, my son collapsed in my arms and kept saying that he was really sorry for everything. I managed to calm him down, and he fell asleep on the couch. I was stuck with him in the most uncomfortable position all night, but all I cared about at that moment was my son. I didn't know that I could love and care for someone this much. I never planned on having children, so this was a huge concern of mine. But the love I have for my son is crazy. He's a bit awkward, which makes sense. 14-year-old boys don't normally burst into tears and not let their mothers out of their grasp, but it'll be fine. I know it'll be a very long road, but it'll be worth it. Thanks for being supportive. And now in the comments, Former 14-year-old butthead here, divorced home and all the fun stuff. Great job, mama. I'm 36 now with a 1.5-year-old of my own. My mum fighting my ignorance, bullheadedness, peacocking, and all the other nonsense I put her through has made me a much better man. Boy, did we have our blowouts. I am so close with her now. Talk with her daily, send her pictures of her grandson. She recently moved across the country to be closer to us, and I couldn't be happier. I can't say how smooth the rest will be for you, but I have faith that you and him will have a stronger bond for all of this. And OP says, thank you for sharing. This was very sweet. Although I hope I don't have to go through any of that, I pray that I would be strong enough to handle it like a rock star like you. You are the epitome of mum. Hey, I was an asshole son as a kid too, but my mum fought for us and wanted the best for us. My brother was worse and fought her more than I did, but I did my fair share. Fast forward a few years and we are very close. That kid will remember what you did for him, the lesson you taught for him, and the love that you gave him. Thanks for being a good mom. Your story was heartwarming. You taught him one of the best lessons a parent can teach, that you are true to your word, authentic, can be trusted, and are strong enough to protect him. You're a great role model. Thanks. You don't have to be their friends to be a great parent. You sound like a great mum who is doing her best to make your teen into a great adult. Yup, parenting is about care, guidance, and support. You shouldn't be an asshole to your children, but you shouldn't be their friend either. They have plenty of those outside of the house. Kids need a role model, structure, and a safe space to ask for advice or support. OP is a good mom. The problem here is the crap dad trying to be cool and not realizing that by not setting limits and consequences, he is harming his son. Good for mum for being a decent parent despite not having the dad's support. Not just trying to be cool, weaponizing their son against his mom. Sadly, pretty common. I'm glad that despite my parents' divorce being a mess, they were a team when it came to raising us. Our next post is titled, My Wife Wants Me to Marry Her BFF. So, my wife, 36, and I, 40, have been married for 12 years. We get along very well, and our relationship is great. My wife and her best friend, I'm going to call her May. May is my wife's best friend since they were young. She's a good woman, but she's still single, and being single at this age is difficult in the countries of the Middle East because she can no longer find love easily. It's sad and unfair, but these things are still things that exist. To make it long, my wife comes to see me today and tells me what I think of May. I tell her that she's a good woman. This is how she told me that she would like me to marry May and that she has no problem with it, that the two get along well, and that May would like to have a child before her 40s because it'll be harder/impossible later to have a baby. I was shocked coming from my wife because she's of the jealous type. Not to the extreme point, but... And I wanted to clarify that in our religion, it was allowed under certain conditions. Treat both fairly and equally in everything. But the problem is that I don't want to. I can't marry a woman I don't love and sleep with her, and I know I will be unfair to May, and she won't be treated like my wife. I told my wife my opinion and that it was no, but she insisted that I think about it, and she keeps telling me that it's sad for May because she wants a child and she cannot have recourse to a sperm donor because it is religiously prohibited, and in any case, we don't have a sperm bank here. I'm going to sound stupid here, but I don't know why. I'm afraid she has something going on between May and my wife, and that's why she wants me to marry her so that she can stay with us all the time. What should I do? And what's a good answer that I can give to my wife to convince her that my decision is not wrong and that I can't marry her BFF or even sleep with her? And now in the comments, you should ask other elders, but I'd say in Islam, it says you have to be fair and equal to your wives. If you feel like you can't do that, and that you don't want that, then say no. It's simple enough. It is incredibly difficult to be equal in marriage to multiple wives, so I'd recommend against it. If I may ask, why are only men allowed multiple partners? Is there some inherent superiority of males over females in Islam? It was also because back then, due to the constant fighting and wars, there would be less men than women. The ratio of men and women was devastating, so that it is possible for every woman to get married and have a family, there had to be some kind of polygamy. Islam has put a limit, and that is only 4 wives. Some people think you should reach out to the other people who share your culture. However, I disagree. You do not want to marry May, so do not marry May. Your wife doesn't have to understand or even agree with your position. That doesn't change the fact that it's your right to not marry someone that you don't want to. Tell your wife you thought about it, and the answer is no. If she continues to pester you, tell her you will leave the room if she doesn't stop. I'm with you. If this was about getting a puppy, the consensus would be, do not get a puppy that you know you don't want. But when your wife is insisting you marry and knock up her best friend against your wishes, are you sure? What's the harm, really? Maybe ask an imam. Is the culture so different that he has a responsibility to the community to marry and impregnate lonely women? Because even if that's the case, it wouldn't change my advice. Is May even fine with that idea? Honestly, we have a very romanticized view on love and marriage. I once met a woman from Southeast Asia who married a much older German man. Her version of a good marriage was a husband who doesn't beat her. Maybe May is fine being the second wife and is happy to just be around after she has her child. But there is also so much that can go wrong here. Your wife is fine with it now, but will she be in the future? You seem to have concerns that your wife wants a relationship with May, and that would be a cover-up. Would you be fine being the alibi for their relationship? Essentially, there are 3 people involved, and therefore 3 peoples whose feelings and intentions you have to explore. My gut feeling says don't do it, but the arguments you gave us against it mostly rest on hurting the feelings of others. Cheating on your wife or being a bad husband to May. What about your own feelings? And now on to the update. Hello everyone, I'm coming to you again for a last update. I sat down with my wife and I seriously asked her why is she really trying to marry me to her best friend, and if she loved May more than a friend, or if there was really anything else that I don't know. She started to cry and told me that she just wants me to have a child because she knew that one day I would like to be a father and that we have not been able to have children due to infertility issues, and that she felt bad that I had to live all of my life childless. It really hurt me because, despite my desire to have a child, I never put the blame on her or even thought about having a child with someone else. I took her in my arms and explained to her that we cannot have everything in life, but that I was lucky to have a wonderful wife in my life and that everything happens for a reason. She calmed down and apologized for putting pressure on me and told me that she thought she was doing good for me and May, but that she would have been unhappy if I had accepted. We closed the subject and we put it all behind us. Thank you everyone for your comments and your help. And now in the comments, have you both considered adoption? And OP says, there is no civil procedure for adoption. Because adoption is a religious procedure in my country, it is supervised by authorized religious authorities and must be approved by the relevant religious court. I know it sucks, but we can't do anything about it. We can only choose to help an orphan kid for X number of years with money and pay him to go to school, and that's it. But we can't adopt. What country is this? First time I've ever heard something like this. Lebanon. Perhaps adopt a child in another country under their laws, especially if one of you happens to have dual citizenship. Then bring the kid back to Lebanon as a normal kid? You're a good man, and better, a very loving husband, and you are both lucky to have each other. I'm jealous, a bit, in a very positive way, but still jealous. And OP says, thank you so much. Your comment makes me smile. Sometimes the stuff we have to man up for is just plain stupid. For a lot of guys, this would have been an ego boost. But for a married man who truly loves his wife, adding more craziness to the relationship is not something we want. Marriage is too precious to lose, reaching for more. I have children, but if I didn't, it would be a lot of adult vacations. I'm glad they worked it out, because I can see this being a recipe for disaster. A lesser, more foolish man would have jumped at the offer that she was making to him, and would have made a mess of his life. The OP is very wise. I don't know. If it was an arranged marriage, it could actually be fun to have a good friend/sister wife to chat and raise the potential kids with while hubby is at work. But if you married for love, and it sounds like OP did, then it would definitely get sticky. If the wife wanted a sister in the house for companionship, I could see it working. One way it could go wrong is if the second wife had a baby, the first wife would just see her husband bonding with a child that she couldn't give him. The first wife could end up feeling like the interloper. I think that's the scenario the husband was worried about when he said the wife is the jealous sort. I honestly thought that this would have ended with the women secretly being lesbian lovers all along. I thought that the friend was already pregnant. Glad it had a more wholesome ending. The wife was just insecure, and the husband rose to the occasion. I have a distant relative that would always come to family reunions with the person they were married to and her best friend. Everyone called him Terry with 2 wives, all one word. At one point, Terry and his one wife got divorced, and he married her best friend. They still all lived together and came to the family reunions together. This very well could have been for insurance. Ex-wife could have had the divorce decree state that she was still to be covered by ex-husband's health insurance, and current wife then gets covered as she is now legally his wife. Just a random thought. Am I the arsehole for telling my partner that her kid has a father and I'm not a cash cow for deadbeat parents? My partner has 3 kids from 3 different men. The first one is old and can happily manage for himself, although his father is missing in action and has never factually taken care of him. The second one is a teenager and lives with my partner. The father is a deadbeat man that has 4 other kids with I don't know how many women, and financially is never helpful. The third one never had a father. He ran away when my partner got pregnant. I know, it's messy. I am a woman, and my partner has never before been in a lesbian relationship, but we're good. I have always said to her that I will help her as much as I can, but that she has absolutely nothing to worry about the youngest one, because everything will be taken care by me, and she does not have to endure the financial burden. That is not to say that I disregard the other 2, but I do everything for the youngest, and that has always been the case. With time, I started to feel that I was not being respected and appreciated, and my goodwill was slowly becoming an expectation, especially with regards for the teen one. I told my partner many times that although I do not mind helping out, her other 2 kids have parents, and it's not my fault if they're inadequate as such. We got into an argument the other night, and she told me that she wanted to open a private healthcare plan for the teen and asked me for the money. I told her that I did not see the benefit of it, and that her health insurance that I pay for is already covering enough, adding that if she really wanted to, she should speak with the father, adding that it's not my job to make up for the fact that his father is inadequate. All hell broke loose, and she started at first accusing me of being controlling and not doing it because he's a boy, and then telling me that I have to accept his ex is the father of her child, and I should not speak like that about him, adding how much of an ass that I am. Am I though? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Taking care of one and not all 3 of her kids feels like an asshole thing to do. Bit of a weird one, but I don't think you're an asshole for not looking after all 3 of her kids. Just because you're in a relationship with her doesn't discredit the fact that she has 3 baby daddies that should be pulling their weight and they are not. And as you say, adding on to that, you're already doing a whole bunch for these people, plus you already have a healthcare plan that you're paying for. I think it's ridiculous that she wants to add another one on top of that and then force you to pay for it when there are other fathers not doing their jobs here. I'm gonna go not the asshole for this one. And now in the comments, mild you're the asshole. I don't know how you can have a partner, have 2 stepchildren, and then say I'm only going to help with 1. I mean, you're either a family or not. Which is it? Kinda reads to me like OP wanted a baby, and this one had no second parrot strings attached, so she could come in and fill that role. Everyone sucks here. You're the asshole for engaging in favoritism for the one kid, only using your financial resources for that specific kid. I guarantee you the kids have noticed already. She's the asshole for not pursuing what she should be pursuing from the kids' dads. I think if OP didn't want to help out both children, she shouldn't have explicitly only paid for one child. Like, if she really wanted to help out, she could have just contributed to things like groceries, bills, etc. But I do feel like OP is being used, and I'm not entirely sure that her partner would be with her otherwise. You're the asshole. When you start a relationship with someone, you should accept all your partner's children. Whatever you do for one, you should be willing to do for the other. You shouldn't punish the other two because they have bad parents and no parents. There's a difference between accepting them and financially supporting them. If she met the youngest child when he or she was very young and bio dad has no involvement whatsoever, it makes sense that she provides more to the youngest one. The mother is a loser and should be working 2 to 3 jobs to support the kids that she chose to have, not expect a step-parent to do her job. Everyone sucks here. You for your backwards way of thinking. You're supposed to be a unit, and you are actively shunning 2 kids for no other reason than they have shitty fathers. When you date someone with kids, you need to treat all the kids the same. Either support all or none. Not one, and then tell the other 2 that I don't know what to tell you. Everyone sucks here. Adding that it's not my job to make up for the fact that his father is inadequate? Break up now if this is your view on her children with other people. If you ever plan on getting serious with her, those kids will eventually become your own. You are already doing enough by paying for health insurance, and she's trying to force you into more. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling mother-in-law that if she didn't give up custody of her child, we would probably know her birthday? I recently got engaged to the love of my life, and my parents are planning a very nice engagement party. We found out after we sent out invites that it is the Saturday closest to mother-in-law's milestone birthday, the day after, and she has been telling everyone but us how unhappy she is, because she should get a party that weekend. It got to the point where she was bitching to a lot of people, and we felt we had to confront her. My fiancé explained that we didn't know that it was her birthday, but the down payment on the venue is already down, so it is what it is. Mother-in-law's husband yelled about what kind of deadbeat son doesn't know their mother's birthday. Mother-in-law said she understood, she was just very upset, and feels like if she doesn't go, everyone is going to talk crap about her, but she wants her party. Her husband began running his mouth again that we needed to cancel. I said that wasn't an option, but no pressure if she doesn't want to come. He got an attitude about how disrespectful we are, and I replied that it was an honest mistake. But if mother-in-law didn't give up custody of her son, we might know her birthday. But the way that it worked out, he only saw her once a year at most, so he doesn't know. Mother-in-law immediately grabbed her husband and walked out. Well, kind of dragged him out, and now I'm banned from their house, and her husband has been saying truly awful, disgusting things about me. I get that it's a sensitive subject, because mother-in-law lived in a country where abortion was illegal and birth control existed but was hard to get. She just disappeared one day, and I do have empathy, but at the same time, that is why we don't know her birthday. And edit to be clear, mother-in-law did not want us to throw her a party, she was throwing her own. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. I brought up her giving up custody, when I understand that her life isn't fair and it was a hard situation to be in. That is obviously a sensitive topic, and her husband did not react well. I think everyone sucks here for this one. I feel like you went a bit too hard on her, but I can understand her reaction also, even though I don't think it's entirely justified. Her husband definitely should have kept his composure and not just continually run his mouth like he did. I feel like in the heat of the moment, not everyone has the composure to just say, well, it's an honest mistake. If mother-in-law didn't give up custody of her son, we might know her birthday. And yes, it's further complicated by the fact that you only see her once a year at most. I think everyone needs to cut each other some slack here, but I think everyone devolved into petty arguments. I'm gonna go everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, everyone sucks here. It's unkind and presumptuous of you to assume that your mother-in-law just gave up her son. There's a lot that goes into those situations. I doubt it's something that she's felt 100% okay about, especially since she's trying to have a relationship with him later in life. If mother-in-law wanted a party, she should have said something sooner. Asked what your plans for her birthday would be, if anything. Something. She's still a stranger in a lot of ways to your fiancé, and especially to you. Your fiancé is taking care of the most important person in his life, which is you. He's not a mind reader, and she's very entitled to believe that a party being thrown by someone else for you has anything to do with snubbing her in any way. Make no mistake, the biggest asshole here is the mother-in-law's husband. He has literally no business talking to anyone the way he was. He should absolutely have kept his feelings to himself and whined in the car. He's the escalator of this situation, the main aggressor. He turned your mother-in-law away from coming to an understanding and choosing pettiness instead. I think everyone sucks here, given that she's clearly in your husband's life now. I would have stuck with having him, not you, explain that he didn't know that it was her birthday. If he wanted to explain about that because of her not having custody or being in his life much, it is his place to do so, but it's not yours. Given that your mother-in-law and her husband treat you contentiously to begin with, you should just let your fiancé deal with his side of the family. They are also the assholes for not just accepting you to explaining that you didn't know her birthday and then behaving poorly about it, instead of just bowing out or coming anyway and just doing birthday stuff a different day. I'm stuck between not the asshole and a really soft version of everyone sucks here. You spoke the truth, I guess, but for the sake of your mother-in-law who's trying to get her life together, you didn't have to take it there. Just saying. So part of me can't even blame you. I'd apologize to her directly, not the husband, since she wasn't fussing like a banshee, but that's up to you honestly. Speaking of mother-in-law, why didn't she calm her man down? She sounds understandable up until this point. She didn't have to go to the wedding since she wants a party, and if she wanted a birthday party but also wants to come to the wedding, she can simply place her birthday party days after the wedding, 5 days at best. My family does that all the time because most of our birthdays be during a school or work time and we wouldn't have enough guests to arrive. The stepfather-in-law wins the biggest asshole award in this one. He was the one that started the fight. He was the one complaining over people not knowing their parents' birthdays. He wants to make demands, and then he wants to get even heated over the fact that you spit the truth. All of this ended up being his fault that now she wants nothing to do with you and or possibly your fiancé. He should be the one to apologize, not only to you and your fiancé, but to his wife for driving you to have her cut ties with you and possibly the fiancé. Acting like a ticking time bomb over not knowing your then absentee parent's birthday should not be a surprise, especially when it's too late to change plans, unless he wants to pay the extra money to make the date changes. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my sperm-donated nephew he is not a part of our family?" So I have an older brother who I've been estranged with for a long time. I'm not sure where or if he lives at this point. I don't really care. Apparently when he was in his mid-20s, he sold some sperm to a clinic for easy cash. We know this because his spawn Jake, 23 male, recently tracked my family down after taking one of those DNA tests. He was unable to contact my brother, no shock there, but found me on LinkedIn, reached out and we met for lunch. Based on his messages originally, I thought my brother knocked someone up and abandoned her, but at lunch I found out he was conceived using donor sperm of my brother's. He does look a lot like my brother did when we were younger, but based on his origination, I don't really feel any sort of familial bond if I'm being honest. I have my own family that I care about deeply, and I really don't need much more. I guess Jake is feeling somewhat of an identity crisis from not knowing where he came from, so he wanted to meet. When I met with him, I told him I would, though I feel weird about it. I did feel like I should at least meet him to share the very limited info that I know about family medical history. Luckily, we are pretty healthy, but I've had some extended relatives diagnosed with cancer in the last few years. So I told him that, but it was clear that he wanted more. He asked about my weekend plans, and I told him that I was on Easter duty and hosting an event with friends and family. He asked if he could come, meet my kids, and some other relatives. I told him sorry, but that's too weird. I have no ethical qualms with sperm donation, IVF, or any of that, but I feel like it makes a difference that he was created that way. So I told him no, and that I don't want to pursue another meeting with him. He seemed upset, but left with no incident. Then lately he's reached out again, telling me that I'm treating him like crap when we are technically family. I told him no again. He wouldn't stop pushing, so I told him I don't consider him family whatsoever, that I was blocking him, and if he reached out again, I would speak to my attorney about a restraining order. My wife thinks I was too harsh to say those words, but agrees that we shouldn't maintain contact. It would be weird to have him meet our kids given the situation. My friend, however, says that I'm being kind of an asshole because Jake is clearly having an identity crisis, and I'm in a position to help. I have mixed feelings on that. Honestly, it's a mix-up for me between everyone sucks here or no assholes here, depending on how you view each other's actions. I can't particularly judge it myself. I think I'm leaning on no assholes here. I don't blame you for your actions, and I somewhat blame him for his actions being so pushy, but I can understand where he's coming from. Now in the comments, everyone sucks here. You reacted pretty poorly to that whole situation and escalated it. Would it have made a difference if your brother knocked someone up? You could have used a little empathy. You were not obligated to help him through his identity crisis or have him meet your family. He sucks for getting upset about not being invited to Easter. Even if you were willing to meet up, that is too much too soon. Yes, because once you donate sperm, it's no longer yours. This man is his brother's biological son, but his brother isn't his parent. His parents are the person/people who decided to have him. His brother's role was simply to provide genetic material because the people who wanted a kid couldn't. It makes a huge difference. When you knock someone up, you know that there is that chance. You're responsible for your actions. When you donate sperm, it should in no way be your responsibility after that. Obviously, Jake is an adult now. I don't think OP's brother could predict how much DNA testing will change in 20 years or so, and if he knew, he might have reconsidered. I feel strongly about this because my sister has donated eggs, and I feel like it's her right to be anonymous. It has to be, or otherwise none of this makes sense, and no one will want to donate anymore. I'm happy that I never donated mine. You're the asshole for calling him a spawn. Disgraceful. If you want nothing to do with him, then great, but perhaps your parents do. You should at least inform them and allow them to make their own decision. And OP says, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Given the nature of the situation, child didn't feel appropriate. He was never my brother's kid. Maybe offspring would have been more appropriate, but that feels the same as spawn to me. Why did you even meet with him in the first place if that's how you felt? All you did was give him false hope. And OP says, he reached out just saying that he was my brother's son. I was curious. When we met in person is when he told me about how he was born via sperm donor due to his parents' fertility issues. At that point, I felt like I should let him know the little info that I had on family medical issues, but that felt like the end of the obligation. Nah dude, screw him. Some random stranger needs connection with a completely unknown family that badly? What is he, like 10 years old? That's just freaking weird, and you don't need that crap in your life. Family is people that you grew up with, not some white goop from your dad's ballsack. Not the asshole, but also you're the asshole because of how you handled it. The kid seems lost and just wanted to find out where he came from. At the same time, I understand your feelings on not feeling like he is family and therefore don't want to take the next step in introducing your family to him. It's a tricky one, and I hope it all works out for you. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my son's mother it is her fault that my son never bonded with her? I, 36 male, have a 7-year-old amazing son shared with my ex-boss, 40 female. My son is the product of an affair we had. She was already married and had a 3-year-old son and a 2-year-old daughter when we started seeing each other. She got pregnant. They knew that it wasn't her husband's because they had been separated for a couple of months when they found out. Her husband threatened to file for divorce if she kept the baby, and as they have a business together and didn't want to lose everything, we agreed that I would have the baby full-time. I've been a single dad all this time, she has supported me a lot, and even if my son is forbidden in her house by her husband, she tries to be present in our son's life. She comes to see him like 2 times a month, sometimes calls me to let me know that she'll pick him up from school to take him to eat ice cream or something. She tries to compensate not being a proper mother, which are her words, with gifts, money, and toys. To be honest, I believe she loves him and tries to do her best, but my son barely sees her. My son is going to the same school as her kids. I went to pick my son up last Friday, and she was there to pick her children up. We started talking about an appointment Lucas, my son, will have with a pediatrician. When he came out from his classroom, he ran to me and then kissed me and hugged me, and he only said, "Hi, Mum," to her. She kissed him and then we left. She then called me to say how hurt she was because she thought, as Lucas hasn't seen her in a very long time, he was running to her. So I said, "Well, it's your fault, not Lucas's. He barely sees you. Of course he won't have the same bond with you as he does with me. You never try anything beyond the bare minimum." She called me the asshole for saying that it was her fault and reminded me that she has stepped up for him, and she also reminded me that she loves him as much as she loves her other kids. She also accused me of poisoning my son against her, which I don't. Her sister, a friend of mine, also called me the asshole for saying such a harsh thing when my son's mother was just expressing her concern. Now I feel kinda bad, but tell me, was it too far? Was I out of line?
Man, I don't know enough about this situation to give a great judgment. But perhaps in this situation, she's not doing enough and she hasn't pulled her weight as a mother to get the reaction she wanted out of this child, which is undying love and affection. That is such a messy situation, and if she's not putting in the time to bond with your son as she hopes she is, she's not going to get that same love and affection in return. I'm gonna go not the asshole for this one. And now in the comments, everyone sucks here except Lucas. I can't look past the fact that you're bragging about your bond with your affair kid. Hello? You impregnated a married woman with children who happen to be your boss. Let's not pretend that we are Father of the Year material, okay? No, this is not an indictment on your son. He is the only innocent party in this story. It sounds, at least, that your affair partner is doing the best she can under the circumstances, as she's not allowed to have him in the home and you have the sole custody. And the fact that she hasn't been able to bond with Lucas isn't her fault. It is both your faults. You both made the decision to have an affair despite the fact that she is married with 2 kids. You both created this situation that made it very difficult for her to bond with Lucas, not just her. The way you keep presenting yourself as super parent is absolutely sickening. You are so proud of how much Lucas adores you, but let's see how he feels about you in a few years when he starts to understand how exactly he came into being. Because his father and mother decided to have an affair despite the fact that she is married, with children of her own, and that she was his boss at the time. But in the meantime, don't dislocate your shoulder patting yourself on the back for being such a great dad. Whoa, don't hurt yourself getting off your high horse there, buddy. Also, you're being as judgmental as someone who thinks they've never done anything wrong. He stated that the woman was separated from her husband. Typically, during this time, the spouses are free to do as they please in their personal lives unless otherwise agreed upon. Just because her husband had the reaction he did, doesn't mean that you know what they had arranged when they separated. You have no idea if he also had a relationship or relationships. You're assuming a lot here. Nobody in this situation knows if they're going to get back together or make this separation permanent, so you need to rein it in. Also, what kind of a man bans a child from his home that his wife conceived while on a separation? It's not the kid's fault. And all he's doing is asserting his apparent dominance over this woman and making sure that she only has a relationship with the children he fathered. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended the separation just out of sheer insecurity and control issues. Yes, the OP is patting himself on the back, but a child wouldn't run up and be so happy to see a shitty father now, would they? It's not easy being a single parent, especially one where the other parent is in and out of the child's life. There is no stability in that. OP is responsible for the emotional well-being of a child whose mother pops up on any random day every so often. So if the son is happy and stable, then I'd say that he's doing a pretty good job. I don't think the OP is the asshole, because what he said is right. What kind of mother obeys a man that keeps her from her child?
If he was any kind of man, even if he hates this woman and gets sick of just looking at her, he wouldn't let this kid grow up without his mother. This kid who did nothing wrong. If I was ever in this situation, never have been, never will be, speaking hypothetically here, you'd have to tie me down and sedate me to keep me away from my child. Sorry, but the mother and her husband in this situation is the asshole for letting anyone stop her from having a real, meaningful relationship with her son. Everyone sucks here. You're a grown man and should not have had an affair with a married woman. Did you not use protection? If not, that was an idiotic thing to do. Your son's mother is an asshole for acting like parenting is something you can do one weekend a month. I'm struggling a bit to call her husband an asshole, as he is the wronged party, but he is a bit, as it isn't your son's fault. I can call the father the asshole. I find it weird that people will take back their cheating partner, but refuse to allow the kid because they are a reminder of the affair. The person who screwed someone else while they were with you is the reminder of the affair. If you can't get past that, break up. The wife is also an asshole for the parenting thing and trying to patch it up with a guy that she cheated on and who is demanding she abandon her kid. She cares more about a guy who she didn't even like enough to not cheat on than her own kid. My wife wants a divorce and I don't know what to do now. So we have been married for 2 years now. I make sure she is as happy as can be. We have everything right now, a house, a car, food, a job, etc. Yesterday, she woke me up. She was crying. She told me that she feels bad for not telling me before, but before we were even dating, she was dating someone else and broke up with him because they had sex. She now feels unworthy to be my wife because she told me she never had relations with anyone else. I told her I didn't think that should change anything about how I feel towards her. That's something that happened in the past, and we can't do anything to change it. But she just continued crying. She just started saying that I've been very supportive with her all this time, but she can't live knowing that she lied to me for 2 years and started talking about divorce. I just don't know what to do now. I love her, I know she loves me. This is just really painful. Edit, I work at home and she barely leaves. Reading the comments, I think I should add, she is very religious. And also, she had some depression crisis before. Also, I had known her for a long time, maybe 10 years now, but no formal relationship until 4 years ago. And now in the comments, staying with someone who doesn't love you back is more painful, believe me. Trying to save your marriage might not be in vain, but forcing it to stay might be even more painful in the future. The irony is that she is lying now, saying that this is the reason. Something else is going on and she's bad at making excuses. This is 100% fact. OP can believe what he wants, but life is not an HBO after-school special. She doesn't feel so bad that she can't live with herself and wants a divorce. What she wants is to be able to do whatever she has been doing, the previous guy or some other guy. The fact that you are basically telling her it's okay and it's in the past and she still wants to get a divorce is really fishy. Unless she's still seeing this guy or is cheating and is full of guilt, honestly, I would try couples therapy, and if that doesn't work, move on, bro. There is plenty of fish in the sea, and I'm sure she'll regret leaving you. Yeah, it's a bullcrap excuse. She doesn't want to be with you anymore, and probably met someone else. She's probably too cowardly to be the one asking for divorce straight away, so she made up that story so you'll get mad at her and divorce her, but she'll still be able to tell people that you were the jerk for divorcing her for something that happened before you were married. I got the same excuse from my cheating ex. I think she thought that it was easier on both of us to lie about it, but it was so much worse. And now on to the update. Yes, she was cheating and we are already divorced. Thank you all. If some of you have read my previous posts, then you know what I went through. I made my own investigation, and as a good engineer, I hacked my way to all her messages from different services on her phone. What I found just broke me entirely. She was sexting and sending pictures to this other guy who lives more than 200 miles away, and I found out that one day they saw each other while I was on a business trip. I collected all the evidence, prepared divorce papers, and showed them all together at once. On the good side, we don't have kids, and when we got married, we accepted that all our goods were owned by the one who buys them. Me, in every case. So I keep everything, and now she's alone and broke. But I can't help but feel just empty inside. I'm gonna work this out. I deserve to be happy. Now in the comments, you do deserve to be happy. Be patient and discover the things that bring peace and small joys to your days and incorporate them through your days. Bit by bit, you'll gain strength. Divorce before kids happen. This is a good ending as far as that is concerned. I feel for this poor guy. There are idiots out there who think having kids will save the marriages. It never works. Children are more likely to break marriages. That's what I think too. Even a perfect relationship can experience problems once you add children, so any relationship that's not perfect can definitely lead to divorce when kids are added. My parents had a very good marriage, married 40 plus years, almost never fought. Their advice to me was this: every step of a relationship makes the relationship harder. When they were dating and living separately, they never fought. They fought some when they moved in together and got married. They fought more, although still rarely, when they had kids. So never think that taking the next step will make things easier, because it's likely to be the opposite. Yikes. So she was feeling guilty about having sex with someone before OP and her were together, but not feeling guilty having sex with and sexting another dude while being married. Thank God there weren't kids involved. I'm guessing she wanted to admit to something less serious so she could semi-confess without being at fault and relieve her guilt. I've had exes do something similar, and then they claimed that I forgave the newer adultery with the same person because they told me about them. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for going off on my wife after she made a sex sign to keep my mum from knocking on our bedroom door?" So I've been married to my wife for 4 years. We have a medium-sized apartment. For the last 2 months, my mother has been staying off and on in our guest room. My dad recently passed away, and it's hard for her to live in her house alone, so I have been letting her stay with us. My wife and I have never particularly gotten along, but I expected her to understand why it's important to me that she overlook this just for a little while. I mean, she lost her husband of 40 years. She's fragile, and I really want to be able to do what I can to make her feel better. My mum's presence has changed our routine a little bit, mainly our nighttime routine. She'll usually come knock on our door to talk, and my wife hates this. Partially because it interrupts our intimacy. Usually when she's over, we just don't make love. So this past week, I noticed my mum wasn't coming in at night. So we had normal nighttime habits. Yesterday, Mum pulled me aside and told me that the sign that I let my wife put on the door at night was disgusting and not something she ever needed to know. She also said that she was very hurt that I don't want to speak to her since I'm all she has left now. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She said the sign about sex. I still had no idea, and I talked to my wife about it when she got home. She admitted to it, and she said that she made a sign to keep my mum out of our hair at nights. On the sign was written, "Please do not disturb unless you want to see me effing your son." She thought it was funny and necessary, but I was mad about it. I took the sign, crumbled it up, and tossed it in the garbage. I then went off on my wife about how inappropriate and embarrassing this was. She told me it's my fault that we needed this, and it's just a joke. I slept on the couch last night, and she's still pissed at me. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I may be the asshole for going off on my wife and calling her sign disgusting. Sheesh, you know this woman better than all of us, and yet you're surprised at actions like this? It seems like you're putting your mum over your wife in this situation when what your wife did wasn't an attack on your mother. Having to withhold sex because your mother is there all the time would be frustrating, and even you said it was frustrating earlier in this post. Yet you seem more than happy to allow your mother to get in between that sex life and, just abstain the entire time she's there. Absolutely, I feel for all of you guys with your dad passing away in this instance, but it seems there does need to be change and things can't continue for months after this. That's just asking for trouble and resentment to bubble. I'm glad that your wife took the first step in this instance, but I don't feel like your reaction and your mother's reaction was appropriate here. I'm gonna say you're the asshole for this one. And now in the comments, you're the asshole. You need to set boundaries with your mother and do not let her intrude on your marriage. My mother is my best friend, and when my father died after 46 years of marriage, she wouldn't dream of intruding on me like this. The sign might have been crass, but it sounds like your wife has had enough. Exactly. You need to figure out for how long your mom is going to need to live with you and your wife. Loss and grief are a part of life. Your mom will need to work through it and get her own life moving forward. You and your wife need to get back to your life. Your wife has had enough. My dad died out of the blue. It wasn't an illness or anything. I absolutely doted on her, and honestly always have and always will. But she absolutely understands my boundaries and wouldn't dream of coming into the bedroom if I wasn't alone. Honestly, I don't see a big issue with mum staying, but why on earth is she coming in for late night talks in their bedroom? How hard is it to set a boundary of, don't come into our bedroom after we've gone to bed? Yes, and the whole guilt trip with, why don't you want to talk to me? You're all I have left, bullcrap. Everyone knows not to bother other people once they've gone to bed, unless it's a dire emergency. Mum is leaning on Son and using her grief to cross major boundaries, and Sonny boy cannot see it. Poor wife has it right. I wonder how long she'll put up with him. You're the asshole. There is 24 hours in the day, and your mum can only seem to talk with you when it's bedtime? I understand wanting to support your mother, but she's going to be codependent on you if you keep allowing her to stomp on your boundaries. She's already started to plant seeds of manipulation of you're all I have left, making you feel guilty. My grandma lost my grandpa after 50 years of marriage. She moved houses and developed her own routine so she could grow as an individual. She said that change and not being dependent on others is what keeps her going. She misses my grandpa dearly, but is happy where she is in life. Your mother needs to start finding herself again, in ways that don't involve you. You're all I have left is shorthand for, I'm going to be very difficult to move out in this circumstance. Came here to say this. She got the entire day to talk about what she wants to talk about with OP, but interrupting their time as a couple is a big problem. Even though he doesn't think it's a problem, I really don't understand the unwillingness to even try to find a solution that would make his partner comfortable too. And now on to the update. Some people asked our ages. I'm 26 and my wife is 25. We have no kids and are waiting until we save up some more money before we start trying for one. So I took a lot of the nicer comments here to heart and I took action. First, I sat down with my mother and tried to get to the root of this issue. She told me that she's been doing this as she's just been so lonely and she wants to feel connected to her only flesh and blood that she has left. This made me really feel for her, so I went to my wife to apologize and try to negotiate something. My wife, however, told me that she doesn't want my mum living here anymore. I tried to see if she could just let her stay one more weekend, but she rejected it. Me and my wife sat her down, and I told her that we felt like we needed more privacy from her, so we asked her to leave for the time being. This set my mum off. She started crying and accusing my wife of trying to, in her words, break us up. I felt bad, like awful. I tried just talking to her, and I wanted to get to the root of why she felt like she needed to be here. She said that now I am her only flesh and blood alive, and if my wife keeps me wrapped around her finger with sex, I'll forget all about her, so she was trying to interrupt that. She also was worried that if I get my wife pregnant, I'll be too busy with her to see her again, and I'll be stuck with my wife when I could do so much better. This made my wife very upset, and I told my mum that I think she needed to leave then. The crying turned into full-on bawling and yelling at my wife. Eventually, I was able to get her out. I told her I don't think that it's best that we speak until she gets over her issues with my wife. Now looking at this, I feel awful. I had a presence who actively wanted my wife gone and didn't want us to be intimate or have couple time. And to top it off, I argued with my wife she wanted to remove said presence. Like I said, I won't be contacting my mother until she apologizes and my wife accepts it, and I don't think she'll be staying over anytime in the near future. I will also be spoiling my wife rotten until I can make this up to her. And now in the comments, wait, she intentionally tried to sabotage your sex life to prevent your wife from having influence in your life and to stop her from getting pregnant because that would make your mother less of a priority. And what's with that break us up thing? That woman needs therapy. That's what I took away as well. It's bad enough when my kids unintentionally cockblock my wife and I, and if I found out mum or mother-in-law was intentionally doing it, I wouldn't have reacted as timidly. Sounds like mother wanted son to replace her recently departed husband. I've seen some posts about emotional incest, and if OP hadn't nipped this in the bud, it easily could have become that. I 100% got the same feeling. She wants to keep some type of manly figure in her life, and her son probably looks like the deceased husband, so she's projecting those emotions onto her son. The mum needs grief counseling something fierce, and if I was OP, I would tell her that she's not welcome in my house unless she starts on it ASAP, and then apologizes to the wife. Proud of you, OP, for realizing your mistake and actively trying to fix it. And OP says, I have been considering this. The fact that you were her only blood relation before she lost her husband may be lost on her, unless they were related. The fact that she could have a grandchild loving on her with addition of blood relative seems to have slipped her mind too. It's sad that she doesn't want you to have a kid with your wife because she's not good enough for you. You know there will never be a woman good enough in your mum's eyes. OP, I am really hoping this opened your eyes a bit. Losing your partner is hard, but trying to use your child as a surrogate husband is absolutely disgusting. I hope you can see how manipulative she is, now. Please note this obvious logical fallacy. She doesn't want you and your wife to have a child, yet at the same time she whined that you were her only flesh and blood. If you had a child, she'd have more flesh and blood, but that's not what she wants. She wants you to lose your wife and life so that she has you all to herself. She wouldn't see your child as someone for her to love, she sees you having a child as a rival. She doesn't care about what's best for you, and your instinct to protect her the moment she puts on crocodile tears shows how easily manipulated you are by her. Please keep a distance. Until she gets successful therapy, this is actually a downright dangerous person to have in your life, especially if you ever have or plan to have kids. Our next post is titled, What would happen if I walked into a random McDonald's and started working? So I quit working at McDonald's like a week ago, and I still have my work uniform. I was wondering what would happen if I just walked into a different McDonald's than the one I worked at and just started working. Would I get into trouble with the law, or would they just tell me to leave if they noticed? And in the comments, honestly, I feel like most McDonald's are so unorganized that you could walk in and say that it's your first day, and they'd probably go through the whole process of putting your fingerprint in the clock-in thing and everything. Something similar happened in my org several years ago. Some kid walked behind the counter in a McDonald's hat and a red shirt, and as far as I know, he just walked around to the back of the store and then back out. They went into the cameras and sent an email blast of screenshots of this person to every single store in our business center, telling us to look out for something like this happening and what to do if it did. Ours wouldn't care as long as you said that it's your first day. You wouldn't be able to get away with, I'm from another store, because the managers would all have been informed by the group chat apparently. Saying it's your first day would be a feasible excuse right now, since our GM is on vacation. So if you walk in on a day that the hiring manager isn't working, she'd call your bluff immediately, you might get away with it. If you were already wearing a uniform. Since our GM is on vacation, one of the managers would probably just put your name on a piece of paper at the end of your shift, write your hours and break time, and then put it in the manager's chat. You also wouldn't want to arouse suspicion by knowing every station immediately, because you'd probably have some explaining to do. And now on to the update. So I went to a McDonald's in a nearby town at around 4 PM yesterday. I parked at a nearby store where I had a good view of the drive-thru. I waited until the drive-thru was very full to go to the McDonald's, since they would be too busy to pay attention to me. I casually walked in and pretended to clock in. I washed my hands and put on my gloves. There were only 3 workers in the grill area. 2 of them were busy online, and the other one was frantically dropping tender ones. And when they saw me, they told me to drop nuggets. I dropped nuggets and restocked the little freezer that was by the fryer, and I continued working. One of them asked me if I was new, and I just told him that it's my 3rd day, and he didn't question it. After a while, once things calmed down, one of the workers started teaching me how to do line. I just pretended like I had no clue what I was doing, even though I did. I just occasionally made simple mistakes, like putting diced onions on quarter pounders. Things went downhill once the manager started asking us what breaks we've taken and which we haven't. I stayed quiet, hoping he wouldn't ask me directly. The manager looked at me and said, "And you?" I told him I haven't had any of my breaks. He asked if I was new, and I said yeah. And I gave him a fake name, Bradley Johnson. He looked through his list and told me he couldn't find my name on the schedule, and I said, that's weird. I'm scheduled to work today from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. He then left to check the system, so I kept working. Once he got back, he said, "Who are you? We don't have you in our system." And I told him that there must have been a mistake since I already had orientation on Wednesday, and I also worked Thursday. He left to double check, and once he returned, he told me that I wasn't in the system or the schedules. I told him I had no idea what's going on, and that I'm as confused as he is. He was already kinda pissed at this point, and he called the hiring manager. And you could already guess he found out I wasn't an employee and told me to get the F out or he was gonna call the police. I left, and the crew members were just talking with each other about what the hell just happened. And now in the comments, it would have been hilarious if he just ignored you missing on system. At my store, it's pretty common for people to be missing in the system even after 2 to 3 days since they started. But here we use plastic cards to punch in, and we do use SMS, but it's heavily overlaid by other EMP admin program. So here in Europe, they probably wouldn't even mind. Man doesn't even know until he has to call the hiring manager. Hiring manager probably is really pissed at you if it was their day off though. And OP says, well, good thing I gave them a fake name, and I plan not to go to that McDonald's for a while. Ha, that's quality. In Oz, there was a group of boys who were going around to a bunch of stores and walking in like, hey, it's my first shift, and then stealing crap or drinking alcohol while in uniform. OP made a lot of those workers' days, I'll bet. A helping hand when they're slammed, and then some juicy drama to talk about for a good while afterwards. Sounds awesome to me. We have been blessed by the McAngel. I wonder what would happen if a flash mob of previous employees suddenly show up and take on an extremely busy shift, including fixing the ice cream machine by a qualified technician. My boyfriend of 8 years cheated on me with his best friend's fiancé and is now begging me for a second chance. I still love him, but I don't know what to do. Background. I met my boyfriend in college when we had a class together. He was struggling because of his party lifestyle, but I, being a studious introvert, was thriving. He begged me to help him, and I relented eventually. I hated his guts, but for some reason, he made me fall in love with him. He was such an open book too, and waited patiently for me. I didn't let him kiss me till 4 months into dating, and didn't sleep with him till our 1-year anniversary. He was my first, and I really wanted to be sure I was giving my virginity to someone who truly loved me. I didn't ask him to, but he slowly gave up partying and drinking for me, and we both found a new friend group in college who we've maintained to this day. He gave up everything willingly, because he said he'd rather spend time at home with me. The one thing from his past that he didn't give up though, was his childhood best friend, who we'll call Max. Max always hated me. I think he blames me that he sees my boyfriend only a few times a month, and that he isn't fun anymore. He also openly questions our relationship in front of both of us, and says stuff like, "You'll come to your senses eventually," when talking to my boyfriend. I told him I wasn't comfortable, so since then, he never let Max around me, but they still hung out, and I really didn't mind, cause I trusted him. Okay, so this is what happened recently. Max got engaged to his long-term on-again, off-again girlfriend and invited both of us over to celebrate. It would have been just the four of us. Restrictions have been lifted in our area as long as contact and amount of people involved were kept to a minimum. I declined, which, in retrospect, was a huge mistake. Boyfriend offered to stay with me, but I told him he didn't need to, and I'd understand if he wanted to support Max, even though I despised the guy. Again, this was a mistake in retrospect. The next morning, my boyfriend came home crying. We are living together. He was still clearly hungover, so I bathed him and put him to bed. When he woke up a few hours later, he told me everything. Apparently, he got really drunk at the party. Max's fiancée, who we'll call Homewrecker or HM, was very flirty with him the whole night and helped him when he passed out. Next thing boyfriend says he remembers was when he woke up, Homewrecker was giving him a BJ while he was naked. He says he was too drunk and just went along with it while Max watched. According to boyfriend, they're into the whole hot wife thing, whatever that means. Next thing boyfriend says he remembers was waking up naked next to Homewrecker with a bunch of used condoms around them. He rushed home after that. My heart is breaking right now, guys, and I really don't know what to do. He's been begging me for a second chance, even showed me he blocked Max and Homewrecker on everything. He promised never to contact them again. He also swears to not drink when I'm not around anymore, and that he would keep his phone unlocked so I can look through it whenever I wanted, no questions asked. He kept telling me how much he regrets it, and how much he loves me, and that I'm the only one. The sad thing is, I believe him. This man was my first everything, and I feel like my world is just crumbling around me. A few weeks ago, we were thinking about getting married and how many kids we wanted. Now, I can't even look at him without my heart breaking in two. This all happened a few days ago, and I've barely left the room. He's giving me space, but he's also doing the little things that makes me fall for him again. He keeps the house clean, he's been cooking me the food I like, and leaving short love notes beside it on the dinner table. I'm lost right now. I so desperately want to forgive him, but every time I look at him, I can't shake off the image of him being with another woman. I know I was never his first, but he kept promising me that I was going to be his last, and he broke it. Despite everything though, deep down, I still love him. Guys, I don't know where to go from here. I'm crying just typing this out, but I don't have anyone to talk to about this. Usually, when problems this big come up in my life, he's the one I turn to for help. I love him, but I don't know if I can trust him anymore. What should I do? Will couples counseling help? Should I just cut my losses and end it? He seems very remorseful, and he did confess to the whole thing immediately after. Should I give him a chance? Sorry for the long rant, I'm just lost right now. And now in the comments, just a different perspective here. I know you are very hurt, but is your boyfriend okay? Passing out drunk and finding yourself naked and in a sexual situation suggests he did not give his consent. When that happens to a girl, we call it the R word. If the situation is as I understand it, he was not then having sex. His body was being used without informed consent. He was being taken advantage of. Another thing to consider is, given his inebriation, it may not have even been his used condoms. Men who are drunk enough to pass out are not always able to perform, certainly not to fulfillment and multiple times. I don't feel like he deliberately broke a promise to you. I think he was violated. Not just his body, but also because he trusted his friend. This. He seems so sorry and ashamed and regretful. It doesn't seem like he meant to do this, and honestly, just reading this, my heart breaks for the both of you. To me, it seems like he was sexually assaulted at least. In no way could he have given consent that drunk. I understand that it will be hard for you as well, knowing that something happened, but I don't think he's at fault here. It seems like he was taken advantage of in a drunken state. OP, he came crying to you, confessing he was sexually assaulted by his childhood best friend's fiancé while the best friend watched. I get you being hurt. Your emotions are valid too, but he needs you and he needs a therapist. Also encourage him to file a report for sexual assault. He did not cheat on you. And now onto the update. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for those who gave me really solid advice in my last post. A lot has happened in the last few days. Sorry I haven't been replying to any of you, I just didn't think that I was in the right headspace to actually hold a meaningful conversation. Rest assured, I did read all of your replies, even the really mean ones. So where do I begin? Well, I think some of you would be delighted to know that he left me for not being supportive. Sucks to be me, I guess. I guess you guys were right. I am a sucky girlfriend. He's now off to be with his brand new supportive girlfriend. Nah, just kidding, but some of you would have wanted that to happen, right? So here's what really happened. After reading some of your comments, I started to see things from a different perspective. I never really thought of it as anything other than cheating, and it didn't help that when he came home to me that morning, he claimed to have cheated on me. And I guess my mind just started going to a dark place where logic goes out of the window. It's definitely not an excuse, but I really wasn't in the right mindset after he said he cheated. I guess it was after the realization that this man would never willingly hurt me is when all the anger and pain of being cheated on was washed away. I couldn't really bring myself to talk to him at first. He was on the couch blankly staring at whatever was on TV. He looked empty. I sat beside him and told him that I had no intentions of breaking up. Well, he came to life almost instantly, and before I knew it, his arms were wrapped around me. He was shaking, and I could tell he was crying. I was too. Remember when I said I felt my world was crumbling around me? Well, for the first time in what seemed like forever, I could feel it starting to fall back into place. I didn't realize how much a simple embrace can be so calming. Everything was starting to feel right again. Then we talked. He apologized again for cheating, and when I told him I didn't think he cheated, he had a puzzled look on his face. I asked him if he gave consent, and he said no. I tried to explain I guess he still doesn't realize that he was actually taken advantage of. He said the first thing that came to mind after what happened was that he cheated and was so afraid of losing me. This man, after being R-worded, first thought of how much he betrayed me instead of how he was betrayed himself. I was floored. He said his first response had to be to win me back, which is why he's been going the extra mile in the last few days, taking care of me from a distance. When it was my turn to speak, I told him how sorry I was for not being supportive. I jumped to conclusions without actually thinking about it clearly, which was pretty out of character for me. A few more exchanges after that, and the conversation shifted to Max and Homewrecker. I told him that I never wanted him anywhere near Max or her again, and he agreed. I've always thought that he was a bad influence, but I never thought that he'd take it this far, so I never stopped him from seeing his ex-best friend. He showed me his phone, which didn't have a lock anymore. He said he blocked both of them on everything, but wanted to keep the open phone policy. He said it's so that I can be sure he isn't back in touch with Max. I urged him to file a police report, but he was against it. He said that even if he was taken advantage of, he couldn't bring himself to do it. I didn't really know about it at first, but his family and Max's family had a very long history of friendship. Their mums were college best friends, and their dads worked together. Not only were the two of them very close, even their families were close. I thought they were just neighbors, but it was more than that. I didn't know because every time I visit his family, the topic was never brought up, and I haven't really met any of Max's family except for his little sister, who came by to play with boyfriend's little brother. He said he didn't want to ruin decades of friendship and would be content with just going no contact with Max. He's getting tested later today, and I hope that cow didn't give my man anything. I'm also pretty confident that my boyfriend didn't get the homewrecker pregnant, cause Max absolutely hates children, so I'd imagine homewrecker would be on birth control given how many dudes she sleeps with. Boyfriend and I came to the conclusion that Max most likely set the whole thing up to break us apart so he can have his best friend back. They used to be partners in crime after all, when it came to parties and to picking up women. I would like to point out that I did not force him to change. He himself chose to do so, but I know he did it for me, which just makes me fall in love with him even more. When we first met, he was still the playboy party animal he was, but he told me after hanging out with me for a few weeks that he didn't really feel like sleeping around anymore. I didn't really believe him at first, obviously. I've also noticed that a few people were bashing me for making him wait 1 year for sex. I'm sorry, I just have different views. I believe that sex is for people who love each other, so I wasn't willing to sleep with anyone that I wasn't deeply in love with and didn't love me back. I don't judge people who sleep around. My boyfriend has a high body count, but I don't really hold it against him, but back then, I just wanted to be sure that I wasn't just a girl he bangs or a conquest, but someone who he actually loves and sees a future with. Considering his past, I was very skeptical for a while, and I had my walls up the entire time, but he slowly tore them apart, and I'm glad he did. That reluctant yes, when he first asked me out, was, and still is, one of the best decisions I have ever made. Max's plan had the opposite effect. It's rough now, but I can see this experience making our relationship even stronger. I love him more than ever, believe it or not, and I'm sure he feels the same way. The last few days have taught us both how shitty our lives would be without the other. I guess it made us value each other more. Not that either of us took the other for granted, and yes, we are both getting therapy, both individually and as a couple. To be honest, I'm still shaken over the whole thing. Even when we cuddle, I can still imagine Homewrecker having her way with him, and I can't help but cry about it. If I'm still shaken up by the whole thing, I can only imagine how much worse it is for him, but I'll be there for him every step of the way. I know he didn't cheat. I know he won't break my heart. I know that he loves me. I know that I love him. It's hard right now, but knowing those facts makes me confident we can see this through. One Redditor pointed it out that we were soulmates, and I like to think that we are. I can't see myself being with anyone but him. Thanks again for all of your advice and for making me see things differently. I'll try to reply and answer questions when necessary and when I can. And now in the comments, I'm glad that it worked out this way. Thank you for supporting him in the end. I'm a male survivor myself. This gives me hope that we can truly start to be taken seriously soon. Thanks for updating us. I hope both of you will pull through wonderfully. Kinda scared that you'll still be in contact with Max because their families are close. Since flipping the genders, any girl having an abuser as a family friend who still hangs around is a scary thing. But as long as you guys stick together, I do wish you guys the best. And OP says, future mother-in-law and father-in-law hate Max, so he barely shows up for get-togethers. They have always seen him as a bad influence, and rightfully so. Small chance that we'd run into him in the future, and if there is any chance, we'll just avoid them or skip the event. I'm glad you managed to change your perspective, but please for the love of God file a police report. This is more important than decades of friendship. And OP says, I don't want to push him. He's dealing with a lot right now, and ultimately it's his decision. I'm going for an angle that you may not have considered, because you sound like a nice person. When Max realizes his plan didn't work, he may encourage Homewrecker to file a report against your boyfriend. At this point, the reporting it to the police is for his protection from her. Wow, with sociopathic friends like that, who needs enemies? Though I do wonder how he will maintain no contact when Max's family is so close to him, and how will he explain that Max won't be invited to the wedding / be his best man. And I bet Max did damage control and told everyone that OP is a controlling B-word and destroyed their friendship, just to make himself the victim. I hope he doesn't damage OP's relationship with her in-laws. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend that he can't date younger and then get upset about my budget apartment? So I recently got together with a guy from my hobby. He asked me out first, and I had some doubts that we would work out together as a couple because of the age difference. He's 35 and I'm 22. So in my apartment, since it's an old house that was originally a single-family house, there isn't much soundproofing, and the floors creak when people move. I've gotten used to the sound of the guy upstairs getting up at 4 AM since he starts work at 5, and the sound of the girls in the apartment to either side of mine watching telenovas till midnight, taking work calls all day, and having friends over on weekend nights. I know when I play music or have friends over, some of the sound leaks through the walls, so I would never get upset about hearing my neighbors because it goes both ways. So, when my boyfriend started coming over more often, he had complaints about the neighbors. which put me in an awkward place. He wanted to go to speak to them or have me text them, and I said no. For example, one of the early times when he stayed over, we went to bed at around 10. He wanted me to ask my neighbor to turn down her TV. I said she didn't have it that loud, and she turns it off at midnight anyway. At 4 a.m., he got very irritated with my upstairs neighbor getting up and cooking breakfast. I said that he would be done by 5 because that's when his shift starts. At 7 a.m., he was still trying to sleep in, and the neighbor on the other side had some work calls that he said he couldn't sleep through. I offered him earplugs, and he said he couldn't sleep with them in either. He wanted me to ask her to quiet down. He had similar comments every time he heard someone else in the building just living their life, especially if it was when he was in bed. I got frustrated with my boyfriend and told him, you can't expect to date a hot, young 22-year-old and not want to deal with a 22-year-old's living situation. I don't know if you realize, but this is a normal apartment for someone my age. Hell, my neighbors are pretty great. Nobody's throwing loud parties on work nights, nobody's having screaming fights, nobody's having babies. The hot young part was in sarcastic air quotes because those were his words, not mine. He got irritated and asked why I was bringing age into it, and I said it's because he can't both want someone so young and also want someone with house kinda money, and he was being so out of touch with how normal people in their 20s live. He got really irritated with me bringing age into it, and even more annoyed when I'd respond to his neighbor complaints in the future with, "Okay, boomer," or tell him that if he wanted to have a rich person apartment, he could pay for it. Am I the asshole for what I said to my boyfriend about my apartment? I don't think so at all. I think if he wants to complain about all these things, he can go to the effort of driving you to his apartment and back, and then dropping you back home. He can't expect the best of both worlds when you're not in a position to do that for him. Neither are you in a position to facilitate your own transport to his place. Also, that hot young 22-year-old is cringe. Yuck. Don't say that. Don't say the quiet part out loud. That disgusts me. Get out of here with your creepiness. Anyway, I don't think you're an asshole in this situation. I think you're doing the best with what you have, and I can't blame you for that. So I'm gonna say you are not the asshole. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Women his age don't put up with that behavior. Judging by all of the relationship posts on this sub alone, plenty of women his age put up with that behavior. Unfortunately, you're right. The 22-year-old putting up with this will become a 35-year-old putting up with it if she doesn't wise up. People wonder why the advice given is to dump them in the relationship advice subs. Many of the situations are very similar to this. Less age gaps though, where the partner is just a disrespectful asshole that communication won't fix. I don't get Reddit's obsession with we shouldn't jump to dumping people. Wrong. We should absolutely normalize getting out of unhealthy relationships. I don't know, man. I think your initial instinct that this wouldn't work out was right, but for more reasons than just age, he seems to have a very low tolerance for mild inconvenience. Not the asshole. Yeah, as someone in their 30s who still likes apartment living, I get the impression this dude wants a level of soundproofing that isn't possible, period. If you can hear people taking work calls, watching TV, and making breakfast, the soundproofing is just bad. I empathize with him because I hated apartment living. I felt like I could never live my life because I'd be a bother to my neighbors, and conversely, I would get annoyed at my neighbors when the fault really lies with the shitty landlords that built these buildings as cheap as possible and not give a single F about sound control between units. Not the asshole. Do you know why a 35-year-old dates a 22-year-old? Because women his age don't put up with his childish behavior, but a 22-year-old is more likely to be easily guilt-tripped. Good on you for standing up for yourself. Honestly, you might have a common hobby, but you're in very different places in your life, which can make a relationship difficult if you are not both ready to be understanding. Living in an apartment comes with that burden of hearing other people. I'd point out to him that they probably hear y'all being intimate, but they don't bother you about it. If you can hear that much of what's going on in their apartment, they can hear just as much of what's going on in yours. I just want to say this wisdom doesn't come from just being smart, it comes from once thinking that I was just so mature that I attracted older men. But I got carded until I was 30, and based on other life decisions, I can guarantee you that I am not that mature. Live and learn. And now to the edit/update. A lot of comments are asking if we could stay at his house. It is not possible for me to get to his house on my own because I don't have a car and the buses don't go that far into the suburbs. So that would mean him driving 30 minutes from his house in the suburbs to pick me up, then an extra 30 to drive me to his house, then an hour round trip early in the morning to get me home in time for work. It's a lot easier for him to just visit me in the city. Edit 2, a lot of people in the comments are saying technically 35 is a millennial and not a boomer. I know that. I'm using boomer as a joke, or a figure of speech to say acting out of touch and entitled to tell other people what to do. It's a common figure of speech to say okay boomer to someone who's acting entitled regardless of their actual age. It's more of a mindset thing. And edit 3, this is the update. I googled his property records for his house and he co-owns it with a woman who shares his last name. Holy crap. I don't know if she's his wife or ex-wife or what, but I'm out of here. I'm honestly freaking out right now, but I just gotta say, a great big thank you to everyone who noticed red flags and made me question that. I've blocked his number. He can have fun figuring out where I went. And now to the comments. As soon as it was mentioned that they never go to his place, I just out loud said, "Girl, bet he's married." Seriously, my girlfriend lives a 30-ish minute drive away from me and I don't complain. I dislike having to drive longer than 20 minutes most of the time. If he lived a large town over and it was like a 1.5 hour drive, I could see that as being an issue. I once dated a guy who lived 1 hour and 15 minutes away from me, and he would come and pick me up on Fridays and drop me back on Sundays. I was saving up for a car at that time and didn't need one where I lived. In September, we will have been married 10 years. Oh lord, the strength to not go sleuthing for the answer. I couldn't have let it go. I'd have known his mailman's shoe size, and how his kindergarten teacher takes her coffee, sugar, no milk, before the night turned into day. Yeah, I'd need to know the truth. Funny that literally the title, like knowing somebody was having this problem, had those suspicions. It's kind of beautiful how naive we all are when we're in the middle of the storm, and sometimes just putting it into words lifts your head from the clouds, and suddenly you see the storm. But I still want to throw a lightning bolt at him. Many years ago, I was so angry at a married guy who presented himself as single on a dating site that I spent a couple hours digging around until I figured out his real name, where he really worked, his wife's name, where his wife worked, his daughter's names, and their dog's name. Told him that if he wanted to be single, get a divorce and be single. But if I ever saw his profile again, I'd absolutely share copies of his profile, his sexts, his photos, and everything else with the world. The only thing I'm taking away from this is getting to the middle of the post thinking that, well, you're young dating someone old as F, and then realizing I'm the same age as the old as hell guy. I am the same age. But you know better than to chase the hot 22-year-olds. 22-year-olds have hopes, dreams, and plans like they're gonna change the world. It's like listening to a small kid talking about Santa Claus. I don't have the heart to rain on their parade. After 18 years of marriage, I just found out that my children aren't mine. My wife Kelly and I have known each other for over 20 years and have been married for 18 years. We have 17-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and I just found out that they aren't mine 2 days ago. My kids got those ancestry tests for the family, and we found out that I'm not their father. Oof. Kelly and I met each other as co-workers at a job right out of college. We both were very ambitious, so after working for a couple of years, we decided to start our own business. We fell in love, and a year after starting our business, we got married. A couple of months into marriage, we had a massive fight over the direction that we wanted to take our business in, and I left our home. She came to me a couple of weeks later, and we compromised. We've been inseparable ever since. Kelly also got pregnant around that time. We've been through thick and thin, our business has been through several hardships, but we weathered them together. We were always there for each other. We could always depend on each other. I loved her so much. She was a part of me, and I couldn't even imagine a life without her. I trusted her absolutely until this happened. Kelly has been crying and apologizing constantly. She told me that during the time we had that fight at the start of our marriage, she got drunk one night and slept with a random guy, and that she has not cheated on me since. The betrayal has left me disoriented. I told Kelly that I needed time to process this, and I'm currently staying at a hotel. I don't know what I'm even doing anymore. The last 2 days have been a blur. I feel like a zombie, completely unable to feel or process anything. I don't intend to abandon my kids. I might not be their father, but I'm still their dad, and I love them dearly. Right now I'm sitting on my hotel bed, and I have not eaten anything today. My thoughts are a mess, so I'm writing this down to help me process. Kelly has always been a great wife and an excellent business partner. I don't know if I'll be able to look at her the same again, or if I'll be the same person again. I don't know how to move forward. And now in the comments, you need to eat. Get some of your favorite food and eat just a little before you do or take anything. They call it comfort food for a reason. I found out my dad wasn't my dad after taking the Ancestry DNA test. My mother said she doesn't remember. Edit. She said she doesn't remember who my father is. After I asked her, she blocked me on social media and hasn't had contact with me in over 3 years. What? That is one bombshell of a secret, that one. Oh my god. My aunt went to her grave without telling my cousin who her real dad was. We mostly suspected she didn't know. She was severely alcoholic when my cousin was conceived. But she basically maintained that it was one guy who it couldn't have been, and never changed her story. Finally, my cousin did Ancestry or 23andMe, and found a guy who didn't know my aunt's name, but recalled an encounter outside of a disco bar where my aunt frequented. And my cousin is his spitting image. Not to mention her half-siblings are startlingly identical to her. Oh, to be a star-crossed lover outside of a disco bar. Where has the time gone? Simpler times they were. Kinda the same thing here. Grandma on my dad's side, his mother, had an affair while her husband was in the Navy during World War II. Both he and I look nothing like that side of the family. Pictures of him when he was little, pictures of me when I was little, and all the way up through today. She knew the guy and took it to her grave. But back then, no one talked of such things. My grandma on my mum's side took who the father of her oldest was to her grave. She would get very angry when people tried to draw it out of her by doing math on how long she was married to grandpa, etc. When Ancestry became a thing, my cousin immediately jumped on the bandwagon and ended up getting a hit. Traced it to a guy who used to live next door to my grandma with his wife and kids. Right around the time my grandma became pregnant, he up and moved his family to New Jersey, which might as well have been another continent for the 1930s. So we now have the who, just not the how, which I think might be a much darker story judging by her reactions over the years I spent with her. Alright, I'm gonna move on to some other comments. We were on a break. She's snake as hell for that. His wife kept a secret for 18 years. I would never go back if I was him. She would have never told him, and he only found out through novelty DNA testing. First things first, you gotta take care of yourself. Get something to eat, relax and watch TV, just unwind a little. You've had a rough bit of news, and that is world-shattering for anyone to have to deal with. You need to focus on yourself right now. Just give yourself what you need, and you will figure this out when you have time. It's already been 17 years. Another year won't hurt. When you're ready, you can tell your wife what you were going to do. If she only cheated the one time, then that's up to you if it's too much or not. That's not my business to say, but you could have a family here if you work at it and if you want to keep it together. This is a great comment. Make your decision, the biggest of your life, in a frame of mind where you're at least physically okay, eating and sleeping, etc. I'm sorry this happened to you, but those are still your kids, and life is not always black and white. And to top it off, this is a perfect episode of Jerry Springer. The story in this post is so screwed up, it makes me not want to date ever again. And now, onto the update. Thank you for the overwhelming response I got on my post. I just wrote it down to clear my head and get my thoughts in order. The day after my post, I called my children and told them I loved them. They were scared that I might leave them. I told them that they are still my children, even though I'm not their biological father, and that I won't be abandoning them. I just needed to think about my relationship with their mother. I saw several comments telling me that they are not my children because they don't have my DNA, but it matters very little to me. I raised them and they are my children. I spent a lot of time thinking about how to move forward with Kelly after that. I was angry that she hid the fact that she slept with someone else after we got married. I calmed down and really thought about the whole situation. I really wanted to call my lawyer to talk about separation, but I kept thinking about our life together. So I decided to talk to Kelly and give her a chance. I called her and went back home the next day. My kids were thrilled to see me, and we spent some time together. Kelly and I went up to our room after that. I didn't speak to her properly since we saw the results. I gave her time to talk. Kelly told me that it had never occurred to her that the kids couldn't be mine. She told me that when we had the fight early in our marriage, she was angry at me leaving over a business dispute, and after waiting for me to return, she went to a bar one day and got wasted. She picked up some guy and didn't remember much that happened that night. The guy was gone before she woke up the next day, and she felt extremely guilty after that. She wanted to tell me, but was afraid that I would leave her. To be fair, I was a hot-headed and stubborn guy back then, so I probably would have filed for a divorce without a second thought. To her, it was a drunken mistake that would have never come out, so she didn't want to risk our marriage, and I would have never found out about it if she didn't get pregnant that night. She broke down multiple times and apologized constantly throughout the conversation. I believe her story. Kelly has been my rock and partner throughout my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today without her. We trusted each other absolutely. This ordeal has made a massive dent in my belief in her as a wife, but I still trust her as a partner. We had long conversations about our future, and I told her I was willing to give us a chance. I made it clear that we might not succeed, and I might leave, but I was willing to try. I assured my children that no matter what happened with my marriage, I would always love them and be their father. We decided to give marriage counseling a try. My wife asked a therapist friend of hers, and she recommended a counselor. We have appointments starting next week. And now in the comments, that's both a heartbreaking and heart-reaffirming story. You are a very strong man to be able to deal with this. It warms my heart to know that your love for your kids transcends DNA. You were there for their skinned knees, sickness, soccer wins, all of it. DNA doesn't matter. The accepted love of a good father is all that matters. You're a good man, and whatever you and Kelly work through or eventually decide on, you have everybody's love and health in your heart and care. I'm gonna level with you here, dude, as there is a lot of aggressive and insensitive comments on here given the mental state you're in, but I'm gonna frame the paragraph above to you from a different perspective. She said that the thought never crossed her mind that the pregnancy could be the other guy's at that time, but if she was willingly and actively trying to keep it hidden from you, like she admits, then surely the possibility would have crossed her mind at least once. But the thing that makes this even worse, in my eyes, is that she openly admits she took your choice away from you. She knew she had been unfaithful and that you wouldn't react well to the news. Any man or woman has a right to be angry in those circumstances. If she had chosen to give you that knowledge, you could have then acted how you saw fit to make a decision on your future when you learned she was pregnant with another man's children. Instead, she chose to lie. Now the last 18 years of your life has a dark cloud hanging over it. That is an incredible amount of time to take from someone. Like people have said in other comments, you're a better man than me, because in my honest opinion, you have every right to be angry and not give her a chance or a choice in the matter. She never gave you one. She definitely had the thought, if I tell him, what if he thinks the kids are not his biologically? What if the kids aren't his? 1,000,000 times over since the birth as well. No way that has never crossed her mind. I respect your decision, OP, but I personally don't think the truth has fully surfaced yet. There is more to the story. I love how OP dealt with the kids. He seems like a good person. Many of the comments on the original were telling him to leave his wife and abandon the kids because they weren't his. I'm happy that OP didn't listen to any of that. I hope his marriage succeeds. Me too. I was reading and surprised myself by thinking this family can heal from this. He just has to get his butt back home. I was shocked at how relieved I was that he didn't go nuclear, as Reddit loves to suggest. This is way better than that story where the guy straight up left his 3-year-old because it turned out he wasn't the biological dad. Like, I get it, you may want to leave your partner for cheating, but it horrified me that he could so easily leave a kid that he raised as his own for 3 years and not want to see them ever again. Our next post is titled, HOA being difficult because I host support group meetings in my own home. So for the last 18 years, I have been a member of an organizer of a support group for trauma survivors. The room we were using for our meetings in a nearby church was recently flooded and badly damaged, and I haven't been able to find another suitable room for our meetings due to the pandemic. Not wanting the group members to be deprived of an important resource, I decided to host some meetings in my basement or in a secluded area of my garden with a reduced number of attendees. We respect social distancing rules, wear masks, sanitize our hands and everything. This came to the knowledge of the HOA board. A few weeks ago, some HOA board members knocked on my door and told me they weren't pleased with this at all. They told me that people in the neighborhood feel unsafe, knowing that drug addicts gather at my house. I told them that our support group is not for people fighting addiction, or maybe some of them are, but they don't tell me, but for trauma survivors, and that this would stop as soon as we could go back to the church. They weren't convinced and called me inconsiderate and asked me to stop. I didn't because I consider that I have a right to invite people to my house and talk to them. Yesterday, I received a strongly worded letter from the HOA demanding that I stop inviting drug addicts to gather at my house because it puts everyone in danger, and they are not the kind of people that we want in the neighborhood. They said I had a chance to make things right, but didn't, so they are fining me $500. They will fine me for every meeting I organize from now on and threaten me with a lien on my house if I don't pay the fines. The reason they invoke is that the meetings are breaching the peace of the neighborhood and making people unsafe. This is completely untrue. Our meetings are 6 to 7 people at max, we don't make noise, we don't drink, people park on my driveway or on legal spots in the street. We cause absolutely no disturbance. I checked the HOA rules, and I can't seem to find which one I would be breaking. Does the HOA have any right to stop me from organizing meetings at my house? I don't see how our support group is any different from having a few guests at my house. The HOA is run by people who don't seem to know what they are doing, and I think they would stop harassing me if I had real legal arguments to oppose. Thank you for your advice. Now in the comments, this is complicated, and a firm answer would probably require a detailed reading of your HR's CC&Rs by a lawyer, but there's a decent chance they can do this. The fact that the HOA is run by people who don't seem to know what they're doing is largely irrelevant. Many HOA rules are written in such a way to exclude just the sort of activities you're engaging in, namely bringing other people into the neighborhood on a regular basis. I could run through a list of possible reasons they'll feed you. It's a business run out of the home. Even though you don't get paid, it's an unlicensed social club, you can't prove that you are really doing social distancing, etc. But at the end of the day, they don't want undesirables with no clear link to a resident coming regularly into their space, and they will throw fines at you until you stop. You would need a lawyer to get a firm answer though. Agree with this. OP might want to attempt to fight it with a harassment or discrimination claim, but depending on the attorney's strategies, that could be a huge risk for them and for their neighborhood. Personally, I would stop hosting the meetings if it was causing the rumor mill to run, but I would still meet with an attorney to address the fact that the board participated in and took action to place restrictions on my right to invite guests to my home based on rumors that I, a member of the association, am a drug addict and that my guests are drug addicts. This is highly probable to lead to further harassment and discrimination from neighbors. And OP says to that, yes, I might have to stop the meetings, and it's what really saddens me. Some members have a hard time dealing with the added stress from the pandemic, and our meetings provide much needed relief. I don't even want to go to court or anything, I just want to have the possibility to help people who need it and don't bother anyone. What rules do they say that you're violating? Request a hearing and refute their claims. Ultimately, it is possible the HOA can restrict this in a number of ways, limiting guest parking, not allowing non-residential use, etc. But whether or not you are violating the rules as they are written depends on the specific rules. And OP says, they don't even say what rules I'm supposed to be breaking. Everything is very vague, which makes me think that they have no idea what they are doing. Someone must have spread the rumor that we are addicts and it scared them. They are older people who always lived in a quiet neighborhood and are scared of everyone. And now on to the update. I pushed back, and my HOA stopped harassing me about hosting my support group meetings. So I wrote back to the HOA to dispute the fines and sent a polite but firm letter asking them to show me precisely which rule I'm supposed to be breaking, as I was advised by commenters in here. I also pretended that I feel insulted that they are calling me and the group members drug addicts. I felt bad doing so because I know that addiction is a disease and not a sin or whatever, and that I would raise hell because of this and call a lawyer. As a result, the president of the HOA called me and basically confirmed that they haven't found a specific rule that I would be breaking, but it was more of a general feeling that people had, that I was making them uncomfortable and that shouldn't go on. I asked why they were uncomfortable, so he talked about the fact that they think that I'm letting drug addicts gather at my home, and that would bring crime to the neighborhood. I explained again that the support group is not about addiction, and the members are not drug addicts, and the president said he knew, but some homeowners have trouble accepting it. He confirmed, as I suspected, that there are other things that they have trouble accepting about me, and it's not about drugs. Then I tried my luck a little by pretending that what they are doing amounts to discrimination against people who need mental health support, and they were infringing on my right to peacefully enjoy my property, and was adamant that I wouldn't pay a cent in fines. He said that I seemed passionate about the argument, and he doesn't want to be involved in a legal dispute over this. So we came to an agreement that I would move as many meetings as possible online and only have people at my place when there was no other way, which makes sense in COVID times anyway. In return, the HOA will drop their claim and leave me alone. I haven't heard about them again, so I guess I'm fine. Thanks for everyone's good advice. And now in the comments, Jesus Christ. I can imagine what the HOA neighborhood members had a problem with, and I bet it had to do more with certain superficial qualities of OP. When we bought a house, I was strongly against it being in an HOA. Experience has taught me that nothing good comes from HOAs. My parents are in a typical HOA with neighbors with more time than brains, and I had to help them fight very similarly petty things multiple times. Finally, the head of my parents' HOA straight up died of COVID or cancer? Can't remember, and I think half the neighborhood felt relieved. Imagine making your life about such petty things that people don't even feel sad when you pass. It is bonkers to me. I wish there was a way that OP could have fined them in return for the harassment and legal fees when consulting counsel. The whole concept of HOAs seems completely crazy to me. We don't have those where I'm from, fortunately. Simple. Run against them and get them fired from the board. I had a buddy that did that. He just baked a bunch of stuff, went door to door, laid out why the board were a bunch of tyrants, and got elected as replacement president. He spent his term dismantling all of the petty rules and replacing it with better services. By the time he moved, they were getting a lot of value for the fees and people loved it. Am I the asshole for saying I will not be attending my daughter's wedding? So, I have two daughters, Tracy and Caitlin. Backstory. Caitlin and Tracy weren't really close when they were growing up, but they got on. They had those basic sisterly fights every now and then, but nothing too big. Caitlin came out when she was 13 as bisexual, which wasn't really a shock to a lot of people, and because of that, people accepted her pretty fast. But Tracy had a few things to say about it. She was very small-minded about that kind of thing, but after talking about it with her, she agreed to keep her beliefs to herself. Caitlin started dating a girl in her class a couple of months after she came out. This girl was the nicest person anyone can meet, and she made my daughter happy, which made me happy. Fast forward a couple of years, Caitlin and S are still dating. Tracy had started dating a guy when she was 19, and after about 2 years together, they got engaged. Tracy always dreamed about having the perfect wedding, which is in 2 weeks after doing last-minute changes and just going over the plans. She showed me the seating plan, and I realized Caitlin was not on the chart. So I asked her about it, and she said she didn't invite her because she was scared of making the family look bad in front of her fiancé's family. I was taken aback by this, and I asked her about it, and this is how it went. So I asked, "What do you mean you don't want the family to look bad?" "Well, I just don't want them to know about her lifestyle." "There's nothing wrong with her lifestyle. She is who she is." "Yeah, okay, whatever. She isn't invited, end of story." I had so much more to say about the matter, but I just tried to keep my calm. Without any hesitation, I said, "If your sister isn't invited, you should give my seat away to someone else because I will not be coming." I grabbed my things and left. All I heard as I was walking out the door was my daughter crying and begging me to come to the wedding because she needed her mum there. It's been a few days, and I have had hundreds of messages from my daughter and future son-in-law, but I have been ignoring them. I have planned a little mini vacation away with Caitlin, and I also invited S and her family. So am I the asshole for saying I will not attend my eldest daughter's wedding and instead going on a mini vacation with my youngest? Edit. I forgot to mention that I gave Tracy a second chance to change her mind about it, but she just started crying and calling me a bad mother. I would like to say that even if Caitlin was invited, she wouldn't get a +1, so unless she told people she was bisexual, people wouldn't have known about her dating a girl. When Caitlin found out about the situation, she got upset and was visibly holding back tears. She said that I should go and enjoy the day, but even if I did go, I know I will definitely not be enjoying it. So that's why I booked the holiday. And for everyone asking where she learned this bigotry from, Tracy has had a very religious best friend since she started school. Her in-laws are also religious, I believe, but I'm not sure what their views are about the LGBTQIA community. And now in the comments, not the asshole. Though honestly, even the condition Tracy set for her sister attending was still rude as hell. Honestly, I still wouldn't attend. I'm sorry one daughter is a bigot or otherwise ashamed of her sister, but kudos to you for sticking up for Caitlin. Not the asshole. Not gonna lie, I had a little lump in my throat when I read your post. Thank you for being a truly supportive parent to your youngest and pointing out to your eldest that while she can believe what she wants to believe, her behavior is unacceptable. I get that it's her wedding, she can invite who she wants, but to try and pin the reason she doesn't want her own sister there on other people, when she has already made it abundantly clear that she doesn't accept LGBTQ+ people, is horrendous. You did the right thing, but you are going to feel, and she's going to make you feel, like you didn't. Please give your youngest a hug from our little house, and please accept the poor man's equivalent of an award, not the asshole. Quote, all I heard as I was walking out the door was my daughter crying and begging me to come to the wedding because she needed her mum there. Probably only because of how it would have looked if you were not there. If you came out as bi, would you still be invited or not? And what is Tracy planning? To hide her sister from her in-laws forever? How is she going to explain why her own sister wasn't at her wedding? Not the asshole. And now back up to the post, we have last edit. I have talked to Tracy, and she has said that she has thought about the situation, and she's saying that it was her fiancé's idea, and she went with it because she didn't want her new family to see her as a disappointment because she has a sister who likes girls. She said she will invite her sister on one condition, that she has to stay in the back of the ceremony and can't come to the after party, but I can go to the wedding and the after party. I was a bit iffy about that offer, but I said okay, but it was Caitlin who got the last say in it. So I went to talk to Caitlin about it, and the smile on her face when she was told that she could go made me tear up a little. I said she'll only be able to stay for the ceremony, and then she'll just have to go home. And she said, I don't care how long I get to stay, I just want to see my big sister happy. That also made me tear up, but I think I'll stay for the ceremony and then leave with my youngest. I have pushed back the holiday to leave 3 days after the wedding. Thank you to everyone who has helped me figure this out. And now onto the update. Okay, so I went to the wedding with Caitlin. On the day of the wedding, Caitlin woke up bright and early, and she was very excited for the wedding. She wore a black suit, and she looked amazing, and she felt it. We went to the ceremony and did the basic hello and nod to a few people, but then future son-in-law's mom and dad walked over and Caitlin's face went white with nerves, but was surprised when future son-in-law's parents complimented her outfit and kept on saying how smart and wonderful she looks. She was very happy. And then the ceremony started, and we took our seats and watched it happen, and then after we saw Tracy. Caitlin was wanting to leave because she didn't want to start a scene, but future son-in-law wanted to talk to us, so we did the basic conversation like, congratulations. Oh, we hope you have a wonderful life together. You know, that kind of thing. Tracy then asked if I was coming back to the celebration, so I asked if Caitlin was allowed to go. Tracy said no, so I told Tracy that I was going home with Caitlin, which made Tracy give her a dirty look before they got dragged off to the car. Me and Caitlin went home, and we started packing for our holiday with S and her family. It was a wonderful holiday. I got to see how truly happy S made Caitlin, and how happy Caitlin made S. Me and S's parents kept telling each other stories of when S and Caitlin were little. That's it. We are back home now. I've seen a few Facebook posts about Tracy on her honeymoon, but we'll need to wait and see how this will affect our relationship. I truly hope that we can sit down and talk about this. After all, she is still my daughter, no matter what happens. Thank you for all of your help. And now in the comments, good job on sticking up for your daughter, but try to keep an eye out for the other one, cause the husband in the original post seems a bit controlling. I'm glad things kind of worked out for OP. Let's keep in mind, this is what Tracy said her fiancé wanted. Nobody, not even OP, claims to have heard this from him directly. There has been many he said, she said stories on this sub, which turned out to be completely surprise. It's really me! Once everyone has sat down and had a talk, that is. OP, I hope this is the end of it, and your daughter and her in-laws become more accepting of your younger daughter, as she sounds lovely. If Tracy brings up you not attending the reception, you might try pointing out that leaving your minor daughter outdoors for hours while you celebrated just to help her save face is not good parenting, and is just plain rude. Not to mention emotionally abusive. Tracy really effing sucks and is 100% a liar, claiming that it was future son-in-law's idea, even though every time she's confronted about it, she never sticks up for her sister. This is exactly what she wants and is putting the blame on the in-laws. I'll be honest, there's no way that I could have attended this wedding where one of my children was treated as a second-class citizen just for being gay. No effing way. That's what I don't get. To me, this isn't a happy story. She was still marginalized in a big way. Stay at the back and can't come to the reception? That's her idea of a compromise? Maybe a compromise if they asked to bring a dog to the ceremony, not an effing member of the family. That would have been the last straw for me. Cut off, full stop. Our next post is titled, Connecticut. Daughter is suspended from school for 2 weeks, and school will only let her back if she gets unnecessary therapy. Please help. So my daughter is 6 and just started 1st grade. The school brought in a wildlife instructor to show them some animals. My daughter hates snakes, and that was one of the animals that they brought. The instructor told her to touch the snake, and she said no. The teacher also told her to touch the snake, and she said no again. Both the instructor and the teacher began pressuring her to touch the snake, and told her they wouldn't move on until she did. She started crying and ran out into the hallway. She stayed in the hall right outside the door. This is the story from the teacher, FYI, so I know my daughter isn't lying or exaggerating. I got called into school, and the principal said that running out of class without permission is an automatic 2-week suspension. When I heard the story, I asked why they didn't just let her not touch the snake. It seems to me that she had a fairly expected reaction for a 6-year-old in that situation. They said that they were doing exposure therapy and were working to make sure that she got over her irrational fears. I asked if there was any way that they could change the suspension, since I can't afford unexpected childcare for 2 weeks. They said that they would waive it if I could show proof of her getting her therapy for her fear of snakes. Frankly, I can't afford therapy, and even if I could, there are many things that my daughter could make better use of than therapy for a fear of snakes when we live in a city and rarely encounter snakes. I am furious with the school and also at a loss. Can the school put her through exposure therapy without my permission? Would a lawyer help me get her back into school? And are there any legal remedies here? Please help. Thanks in advance. And now in the comments, time to escalate this right up the chain. Is this coming from the principal? Frankly, I would argue that their negligent exposure therapy has actually exacerbated her fear of snakes, resulting in a need for therapy, and that you may actually have a case for damages against the school. Ask them whose license they were practicing exposure therapy under, and for a copy of that person's license and liability insurance. I can be something of a vindictive arsehole, so I'd probably throw in a report to the health department for both the teacher and wildlife instructor for unlicensed practice as well, as there is a good chance they won't be able to provide them. Yes, CPS might also be interested in an organization that forces small children to touch animals under the guise of exposure therapy. Connecticut has 2 venomous snakes in nature, as well as a handful of snakes that will attack if provoked. It is beyond questionable judgment to encourage a small kid to pet a snake that they are unfamiliar with. Escalate it up the chain. If they still ignore you, inform them that you will file a complaint with the State Department of Education due to the principal's statement that they were doing exposure therapy and your daughter's fear of snakes was irrational. This should freak them out because 1, you are reporting them to the state, which will involve an investigation that they may not want, and 2, none of the people involved in the incident are licensed mental health professionals, and the teacher was practicing outside the scope of her license. That will land her in hot water with the state. And OP replies, his. I don't believe for a second they were actually trying to do exposure therapy. I think they pushed her too hard and then made up something to justify it. It was just supposed to be a fun educational class visit. Well, since they made the claim that they were doing exposure therapy, that leaves them open to the potential consequences of their actions. In trying to justify them, they have dug themselves a very deep hole. They would have been better off admitting that they screwed up. And now on to the update. Hi everyone, thanks for the responses to my last post. After I read everything, I called and emailed the superintendent describing what had happened. I got a call back almost immediately, and after I explained the situation, the superintendent told me that she had to call the principal, but there was no way my daughter was suspended for 2 weeks. I got a call about an hour later, letting me know that my daughter could come back to school the next day, but would be placed in a different class. I received apologies from the district and from the principal himself, though I figure that's probably not a genuine apology, but whatever. Thanks for your help. And in the comments, force a child to do something that they have an intense fear of, punish her because she got herself away from the situation, then claim that it's a therapy technique they likely aren't trained to practice. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. What I read about exposure therapy is not throwing yourself off the deep end like they did to this kid. It's stuff like look at pictures or videos of your phobia, learn about your phobia, etc. You do it in small bits. The reading also said this can backfire easily, cause since it takes so much time and effort, people find it easier to just live with the fear. It's like taking somebody afraid of water on a boat and throwing them over and then calling it therapy. Don't remember the post. It's traumatizing and only makes the fear worse, which they would have known if they were licensed and trained therapists qualified to do any sort of therapy on a 6-year-old. I was immediately put off by the leaving the room is automatic 2-week suspension. What kind of garbage thing is that? Yes, let's hurt the child's education by kicking them out for a ridiculous amount of time for something that could just be verbally talked about and then move on. Granted, in this situation, you need that garbage thing to happen so that the conversation with the higher-up could occur. I'm a teacher, and I have kids leave the class without permission occasionally. At most, they get a 1-day in-school suspension. Usually they get a lunch detention and a phone call home. I've had kids bring drugs to school. I've caught kids vaping in the bathroom. I've had kids steal a computer. I've had a kid beat another kid unconscious, and I've had a kid threaten to bring guns to school. None of those kids have ever gotten more than a 5-day suspension and a visit with a district-provided therapist. 2-week suspension for anything is insane. For a 6-year-old, no less. In my opinion, any out-of-school suspension for a kid that young is unreasonable. It just forces a parent to make other childcare arrangements or stay home. both of which cost, when being held at school but away from friends is likely a more constructive consequence anyway. My next post is titled, "My friends asked me to be a sperm donor and I have no idea what to do." So I only have 1 or 2 male friends, and my father died when I was 17, so I'm coming to y'all for perspective. Like the title says, my friends have decided to become parents and have asked me if I would be willing to be a sperm donor. They told me that my involvement past that was up to me. Ideally, I would be around for the kid in some capacity, especially if the child had questions, but they made clear those boundaries are up to me. I have no concerns about their ability to raise children, since they already raise 2 part-time, and their dedication to being parents is absolute. I also have no concerns about any legal issues. We have a solid friendship, and they are in significantly better financial shape than I am. They are ready. I'm 33, and have been single for around 4 years now. I had a near-death experience on my 33rd birthday, and partially as a result of that, I'm in the midst of some very big positive life changes that are really overdue. My last relationship ended badly. Honestly, it was a personal apocalypse, and since then, I have had a lot of trouble forming romantic attachments. My ex was vehemently opposed to having kids, and so I decided back then that having kids wasn't going to be part of my life. I have a lot of trouble imagining a future for myself where having kids happens right now as a result. I've thought about how being a sperm donor might affect my future relationships, and I think anyone who would hold a thing like this against me is someone I probably wouldn't want to be with anyway. I'm of 2 minds. One part of me has 0 qualms and is leaning towards saying yes. The other part of me is worried about all the unknowns. How will I feel? What will it be like when the kid is old enough to ask these sorts of questions? When it comes down to it, they are having a child regardless. This is a huge compliment and a huge honor. I have some more questions for them that I've been writing down, but I know I can't think of everything. What sorts of questions are important in this situation? Am I overthinking this? Considering they told me the boundaries were up to me, I have been very scattered processing all of this and trying to think about what each future looks like. So apologies if I'm missing important details. TLDR, my friends are having a baby, want me to be the donor, and have effectively told me I can set whatever boundaries I want or need to set. What are some important questions I should ask them, and maybe more importantly, myself? And now in the comments, first things first, talk to a lawyer. Everybody may enter into this agreement with the best of intentions, but life has a way of throwing circumstances at people that cause them to change direction. For example, someone vanishes and the other person decides to come at you for child support. OP absolutely needs to have a chat with a lawyer to see first who they can go to for child support, biological or one accepting a parental role in his stead, and if any contract they may sign to waive rights to child support would even stand up in court where they are. In many places they don't, and even if where they live now does, there is always the chance they may move to a different one later. And OP says, "This is the leitmotif of all advice that I have been given so far. I think it is inevitable that some manner of legal advice and documentation will be involved if I decide to say yes. There are a lot of unknowns that just naturally come with having children, but since you won't even be raising this one, there are even more. This kid might want to know you and have you in their life, or they may just not care about you at all. No one can know how that will play out. So it seems to me the main thing you are doing is passing on your genes. I would make a list of any conditions that run in your family and make sure that you have discussed them thoroughly with the potential recipients." And OP replies, "Thank you for the response. This was definitely one of my early thoughts on it. I have been as upfront with them about both my physical and mental health as possible, and will continue to do so. There have been actual court cases about guys who become sperm donors having to pay child support, so tread carefully. Like someone else said, go talk to a lawyer. If your friends are better off, maybe they can pay for a lawyer to walk you through the implications. Other than that, you would need to figure out if this is something you want to do. It sounds like it. And if so, what type of relationship will you have with this kid? The more formalized it is, the better in the long run." And now back up to the post, we have an edit. Right off the bat, I want to thank the community here for the responses and the mod team for letting this post through. I tried to respond to most of the comments. I have learned a lot from the comments here, especially the people who have been through this experience. It's clarified a lot for me and helped me significantly cut through the noise in my own head. The universal piece of advice is to get lawyers involved, which I will be talking to my friends about. I don't love that, but I understand it. I have realized a lot of my concerns over the whole thing come from my own issues and fears, and have nothing to do with how reality will play out. Hearing those concerns echoed here in some form or another has been very validating, and simultaneously has let me filter out the ones that aren't actually useful. At this point, I am still letting myself be undecided, though I know much more which way I am leaning. Whatever comes from this, whatever I decide, this has been a real reminder that life refuses to do anything other than surprise you, and it's nice to have a reminder in the form of something good. And now, onto the update. So it's been an emotional, complicated 2 weeks. I did a lot of reading, a lot of soul-searching, and a lot of serious talks with myself about what the choice would mean. I decided to do it. And before I got a chance to tell them yes, they ended up doing a lot of the same, and decided to go with a bank donor instead of myself or the other donor that they were talking to. This has been a very strange and surreal and fast-moving chapter in my life. I spent a lot of time thinking very hard about this choice, and it made me ask myself really fundamental questions about what sort of person I was and what I wanted in my life. That inspired me to make more beneficial moves in my life, and even my reaction to their decision is telling me a lot about the sorts of things that I want for myself. I am really proud to have been asked this, and I think every moment of agonizing over it, taking it really seriously, was worth it. In the past 2 weeks, I have learned more about myself than I think I had in the previous 4 years, and in the end, I'm happy my friends are going to have a new addition to their life. I guess it turns out that is something I might want in my own life too. Thank you again to everyone who responded to the initial thread. You all helped a lot. And now in the comments, not sure what I would have done in your situation. I think of my family members and close friends who have had difficulty having children, and I feel like I would have been just as conflicted as you are. I'm happy for you that your friends made the decision for you, even if it wasn't what you had decided, because it seems like this has really moved you in a super positive way. Good luck, and keep moving forward. Honestly, I'm just kinda happy to hear 3 thoughtful, prepared people put so much serious consideration towards the process of bringing another human into the world, and weighing what that will mean to all 3/4 of them. Not just emotionally, but financially, socially, legally. These people will be excellent parents, even if they won't be doing it together. Probably turned out for the best. Why complicate a great friendship? Having kids of my own, I don't know if I would be a donor. It would kill me to have a child and not be able to be with them every day. Personally, I wouldn't donate sperm for a family member or close friend because it is super personal and crazy crap always happens. What if something happens and they struggle financially? You will be morally obligated to help them out, and that itself will start problems. I know for a fact if I did donate and those friends and family members start struggling, I wouldn't be able to ignore my baby, even if it's not mine, but theirs. I will get involved involuntarily because I can't ignore a baby in need. OP's friend suggesting he be the one to set boundaries is also a bit weird. What if he changes his mind at some point in time and decides that he wants to be hands-on with the baby? My take is that they were planning on getting him to support here and there financially by dropping all boundaries. Yep. What if the kid has a disability and then they need money or they don't want the kid anymore? What if the kid gets sick? So many ifs that unless you are very unemotional, I'm not sure it's possible to totally ignore the kid and say, not my kid. That's exactly my point. If you donated to family, they will spin the narrative, it's not just their baby, it's also yours, or you're also responsible for the baby. I would rather donate to a sperm bank instead of close family or friends. And that's where I'm going to leave today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it down below, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.